All right, welcome everybody. I'd like to call this September 26, 2023 meeting of the City Council of Charleston to order. Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Councilmember Gregg, Councilmember Shealy.
Here.
Councilmember Saccharin, Councilmember Mitchell.
Here.
Councilmember Brady,
Present.
Councilmember Gregory, Councilmember Waring, Councilmember Seekings, Councilmember Shade, Councilmember Bowden,
Here.
Councilmember Appel, Councilmember Parker, Mayor Tecklenburg.
Here. And if y'all would like to join us, Councilmember Mitchell will lead us in the invocation. Then we'll have a little pause before we have the pledge and the national anthem. Councilmember Mitchell.
Yes. Excuse me. Take time to be holy. Speak art with thy God. Abide in him always and feed on his word. As we come here in this historical chambers to do things that's pleasing in your sight, let us not do things that's pleasing in our sight. And let us remember that we are here as servant of the people in the community in the city of Charleston and around the county and elsewhere. And not doing things because someone else wants us to do it, but have a mind of your own. We have to look at what we are here to do is to make Charleston the best place there to live. And not looking at what someone else wants us to do. We were elected here to sit in these seats that does not belongs to us, belongs to the people. So I hope that we all, my colleagues, the mayor and everyone else, remember that we were elected to do a job to make Charleston the best place to live for the people that's living in the city of Charleston. These blessings I ask in your name. Amen.
Amen. So before we give the Pledge of Allegiance, I'd like to introduce someone most of you know, Yuri Becker. He's the artistic director and concert master of the Charleston Symphony Orchestra. Yuri has performed worldwide as a celebrated guest concert master and violinist, beloved by legions of music devotees here in the Low Country. And I make the introduction because right after we say the Pledge of Allegiance, Yuri will perform for us. We have quite a treat. He will perform the national anthem here in City Council chambers. If you'll join me.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, the reason for the special treat, y'all, is that we are recognizing September as Classical Music Month, and I have a proclamation thereof. If I may share with you, whereas President William Clinton proclaimed September as Classical Music Month in 1994, recognizing the enduring tradition of classical music across America, and whereas classical music embodies artistic excellence and reflects the spirit of our nation, constantly reinventing itself through talented composers and musicians, such as the one we have here. Whereas this month we honor the composers, conductors, and musicians who unite us through classical music, bridging cultural and geographic divides and stimulating both the mind and the heart. And whereas the Charleston Symphony, since its inception in 1936 at the Dock Street Theater, has grown into South Carolina's largest performing arts organization, recognized for its outstanding contributions to classical and other music. And whereas each year the Charleston Symphony hosts more than 150 concerts and activities, including educational events, community engagement opportunities, and acclaimed concert music series, including the annual July 4th free concert at the Joe. And whereas the citizens of Charleston are fortunate to have access to such a remarkable symphony right here in the Lowcountry, I encourage all to join us in celebrating the gift of classical music and the many ways in which it enriches our lives. Therefore, I, John J. Tecklenburg, Mayor of Charleston, along with City Council, proclaim September 2023 as Classical Music Month in recognition of Charleston Symphony Orchestra. There you go. Please make any remarks.
Yes.
Yuri Becker, y'all.
Thank you so much, Mayor Tecklenburg, and thank you so much to the entire city council and all the officials for all your support. We had an incredible opening night with a very, very special guest conductor and soloist, and with music and the arts. What's so special about it is that it's a process of learning, and we don't stop learning. And what I can tell you, what I've learned last weekend is that membership of the Charleston Symphony is not only on stage, but it's also here citywide. You're also members of the Charleston Symphony. We're all in this together. What a great honor for our orchestra to get such a great recognition. And we are, from the bottom of our hearts, we're eternally grateful to you, and thank you all for your support as members of the Charleston Symphony.
Mr. Mayor.
Yes,
I make a
Councilman
motion
Shea.
that Yuri come back every city council meeting.
Yes. And I'll recognize Michael Smith, who's a executive director of Charleston Symphony as well, if you'll be recognized. Thank you. And I'll maybe reiterate that the opening performance last weekend was terrific. And the pianist, the guest pianist, Michelle Kahn, she was just remarkable. And she's an African-American musician, pianist, and she was playing the work of a forgotten African-American woman composer from Chicago of a century ago. I think the piece was written in the 1930s. And man, it was a powerful piece of music, and that woman can play the piano. She was amazing. So y'all got off to a great start, and we support y'all all the way. Keep up the good work. So next up, I'd like to ask, hold on just a second. Councilmember Brady to join me up here along with Annie Reed. She's the Chief Development Officer for the Association for the Blind and Visually Impaired, South Carolina. And is anyone else with you that you'd like to invite up? It'll be fine. We have a proclamation recognizing October as Awareness Month for the Association for the Blind and Visually Impaired. This month-long celebration will bring awareness to the more than 15,000 adults with visual disabilities living in the Low Country in Berkeley, Charleston, and Dorchester counties. Whereas the visual health of our residents is essential to the well-being and vitality of our communities, and 7.7% of South Carolinians over the age of 65 reported a visual impairment in 2022 study. Rates of vision loss are projected to double by 2030, whereas the city of Charleston recognizes vision rehab services as essential services, and whereas the Association for the Blind and Visually Impaired South Carolina 501c3 is founded in 1936, about the same time the symphony was founded, has provided critical services to help adults who are blind or visually impaired, to help them develop the skills they need to live safe and independent lives. The acronym is ABVI. That's for the Association for the Blind, Visually Impaired. ABVI provides free vision rehab services for individuals with visual impairments in South Carolina using skills training, education, support services at facilities throughout the Low Country and the Midlands. And whereas National World Sight Day is observed annually on October 12th, ABVI's birthday is celebrated October 14th, and National White Cane Day recognized on October 15th. They all come together here in October. Whereas the observance of October as ABVI Awareness Month will raise awareness of visual disabilities, the challenges individuals with visual impairments face daily, and the capabilities individuals with visual disabilities have, particularly in the workplace. Now, therefore, I, John J. Tecklenburg, Mayor of the City of Charleston, along with City Council, proclaim October 2023 as the Association for Blind and Visually Impaired Awareness Month in the City of Charleston. Hear, hear. And Annie, please share any remarks you would like to.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Mayor Tecklenburg, members of the council, we are honored by this proclamation declaring October 2023 ABVI Awareness Month. We use this month to bring awareness to the overwhelming need for vision rehabilitation in our community and the efforts that ABVI makes to address this need. We find that many people are unfamiliar with vision rehabilitation unless they themselves or relatives have had need for these services. Vision rehabilitation services teach individuals with visual impairments the adaptive skills necessary to live safely and independently following vision loss. This training is critical as it helps people adjust to life with their disability. Picture trying to brush your teeth, get dressed, or make your own breakfast in the morning without relying on your vision. At ABVI, we help our clients find adaptive approaches to these tasks and many more so that they can live safe, independent, and fulfilling lives following vision loss. The need for vision rehabilitation training is critical in our state. As Mayor Tecklenburg mentioned, a 2022 study revealed that more than 75,000 people over the age of 65 in South Carolina reported a visual impairment, and rates of vision loss are projected to double this decade. However, there is a massive gap in available vision rehabilitation services across our state. These services are not offered at your local hospital or in your local doctor's offices, primarily because most of them are not covered by insurance. To put this in perspective, if you were to lose your vision, neither the white cane you needed to move safely around your home or community, nor the vision rehabilitation training services necessary to use that cane would be covered by your health insurance. But luckily, anyone suffering from a visual impairment living in South Carolina can receive free vision rehabilitation training from ABVI, a privately funded nonprofit. We are working hard to make sure these essential services are available to all who need them, and we are partnering with organizations across our state to revolutionize services for individuals of all ages living with visual impairments. Recognition like this proclamation helps to add weight to our messaging surrounding the need. So on behalf of our board, our staff, and most importantly, the individuals we serve, thank you again for your support. We are truly grateful.
Thank you. and God bless you. Thank you very much for the great work that y'all do. It's been some years since I've been up there to the Association for the Blind headquarters on Morrison Drive. But I know y'all do remarkable work helping those citizens with that need. Thank you. So let's see, lastly, we have a proclamation recognizing Mesothelioma Awareness Day. Is Andrew Patterson with Motley Rice with us this evening? Anyone else with you, Andrew? Please come up for this proclamation. And we have done this annually. It's an ongoing concern, and I will share this proclamation with y'all as well. Whereas mesothelioma is aggressive asbestos-related cancer that affects the linings of the lungs, abdomen, and other organs and heart, whereas the heavy use of asbestos in manufacturing industry and construction has been recognized as the worst occupational health disaster in U.S. history. And whereas asbestos was used in the construction of virtually all office buildings, public schools, homes built before 1975, a high percentage of all mesothelioma victims were exposed to asbestos on naval ships and in shipyards, including here in Charleston, South Carolina. And I think I've sadly shared with y'all before that I lost my brother-in-law to mesothelioma. He had worked years ago at the Charleston Naval Shipyard and was a victim of this as well. Whereas this is now believed to include many of the firefighters, police officers, and rescue workers from ground zero on September 11th. And whereas exposure to asbestos for as little as 1 month can result in mesothelioma 30 years later. Whereas because of occupational, Navy, service-related, household, or even incidental exposures and the very long latency of the disease, tens of millions of Americans are now at risk for developing mesothelioma. For decades, the need for research to develop effective treatments for mesothelioma were overlooked, and the result of this neglect is that treatments available today generally have only a limited effect, and most patients die within 12 to 15 months of a diagnosis. Whereas the establishment of Mesothelioma Awareness Day will raise public awareness of the disease and the need to develop effective treatments. Now, therefore, I, John J. Tecklenburg, Mayor of the City of Charleston, along with City Council, proclaim September 26th as Mesothelioma Awareness Day in the City of Charleston. And I'll ask Andrew Patterson with Motley Rice if he would like to make a few remarks. And I know there are other law firms that are involved with advocacy on this issue, but y'all, Motley Rice was there at the very beginning, and they've been an incredible advocate for the victims of mesothelioma, and we're thankful for the work that y'all have done. Andrew?
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Mayor Tecklenburg, on behalf of Motley Rice, our clients, their families, and countless others who have been affected by mesothelioma and other asbestos-related diseases, thank you for declaring September 26th Mesothelioma Awareness Day in the City of Charleston once again this year, and helping our goal of raising awareness for this important issue. We know, of course, your family has been personally affected by mesothelioma, and our thoughts are with you, your family, and all other families harmed by asbestos. We at Motley Rice are honored to represent clients in South Carolina and across the country who are battling this disease, to aid them in their quest to find a cure for mesothelioma and to put an end to asbestos exposure once and for all. This proclamation means so much to the people of the City of Charleston and the families who've been affected by this disease. And I say that from the bottom of my heart, having lost my grandfather to mesothelioma when I was 12. Many of the victims were exposed to asbestos while simply carrying out their daily jobs. This includes firefighters, shipyard workers, those who served on the ships, power plant and chemical plant workers, construction and other industries that were known to have used asbestos-containing products like insulators and pipe fitters, and of course, the courageous firefighters, police officers, and rescue workers who inhaled toxic and polluted air from Ground Zero on September 11th, 2001. Mesothelioma's reach also extends to the most innocent of victims, and that includes the spouses and children even exposed by dust brought home on work clothes. Sadly, thousands of people will lose their lives every year due to asbestos exposure. These numbers will only continue to increase due to the very long latency period associated with asbestos-related illnesses, which can take, in some cases, 60 or more years to manifest and develop. Many people do not realize that asbestos is still not fully banned in the United States, and it continues to be used in undeveloped countries. And so this assuredly means that the number of people harmed by this deadly toxin will continue to rise until we decide one day that enough is enough. It is therefore critical that we all implore the Environmental Protection Agency and all our leaders to consider how crucial a ban to limit the impact of asbestos on future generations truly is. The brighter the light we can shine on this issue and urge our leaders to act now, the better it will be for everyone. Thank you again for help bringing awareness to this issue and recognition of those who have been affected and will be affected. Thank you. Appreciate it.
All right, thank you. That's presentations for this evening. Next, we'll move to our public hearings. Thank you again, Yuri, for that fine rendition of the national anthem. It was really terrific. So is Christopher Morgan going to be presenting to us? We only have 4 items for public hearings this evening. The first one is a rezoning of 1614 Wilton Street on James Island. Mr. Morgan.
Mr. Mayor, thank you, members of council. Okay, we've got some slides here. So to orient you, this is on Folly Road. It is roughly across from the Walmart's shopping center on Folly Road at the corner of Folly and Wilton. And you see the parcel that's outlined there and actually only fronts on Wilton Street. So it's on a residential street here. In our comprehensive plan, the plan calls for it to be suburban or, more of a neighborhood residential type of zoning. The request is to go to limited business. We also have in here, I'm going to skip forward a couple of slides, the recommendations from the Folly Road overlay, which also calls for this area, particularly the west side of Folly Road, the east side of Folly Road, to have more of offices and residential and things like that, as opposed to the greater intensity of the limited business. So with that background, our staff had recommended against this request, and the Planning Commission also unanimously recommended against the request because of the concerns about the intrusion into the neighborhood here, and also the fact that it was not recommended in any of the plans for this type of use. So the Planning Commission recommends disapproval of this request.
All right, would anyone like to be heard on this matter? Seeing none, it comes to City Council. Councilmember Parker.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Gentlemen, this is in my district. I have communicated with the developer as well as constituents. We do agree that, and I've already shared this with the developer, that this really doesn't fit currently. I do hope, though, as I told the developer, please continue to, speak with the community, especially that residential area. Behind that is all the town of James Island. So those are not city residents, but as we work on James Island, we're one island. So I would ask, I hope that we can, I think any redevelopment that we can get on Folly Road is always crucial. We've got some areas that need some TLC, as well as this location with the Walmart crossing. We have a park and ride, Carta is right there. So we could definitely use some TLC on that corner. That could really create. So I just hope that the city will work with this developer moving forward, but at this time, District 12 is not gonna want to move forward with this.
All right. Would anyone else like to be heard? Councilmember Gregg.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just have a question. I mean, if you look at the zoning map, I mean, you have 3 commercial parcels, general business parcels, and limited business parcels, and then this SR1 right here. I mean, it just seems sort of arbitrary from a layperson's standpoint to look at this and say, well, that parcel doesn't qualify for the same zoning as everything around it. I'm just curious as to how that came to be.
So again, following our plans, and the plans typically follow how we have dealt with a lot of these corridors, and that is where you've got a corner lot, you know, if it fronts on the larger street like Folly Road here, those lots typically do have allowances for commercial uses. But this is an existing residential lot that is on a side street.
Okay.
And the concern gets to be that if you take this lot out, then what's to stop taking further lots further down the side street? And that is the concern typically with these.
So that parcel right there, just to it looks like 3 separate parcels. One, or
Yes.
or am I not looking at that correctly?
I think you are, and I think that there were some subdivision and reconfiguration
Oh, okay.
lots in the past. Because I think this was a deeper lot like the others. And
Okay,
for whatever reason, they combined it with this one at some point in the past.
got it. Okay, thank you.
Councilmember Parker.
Can I just follow up real quick, Mr. Mayor? I too, I really dove into this one because I do, you know, especially being across the street from a Walmart. It's really tough in these corridors with our Rethink Folly Road. Like I said, I really hope that they can come up with something. LB, as you know, Councilmember Appel, not to put you on the hot seat, but Folly Road, we have a lot of car washes, things of those nature. So LB leaves a lot, there are still a lot of opportunities for things that this community, that neighborhood may not want. But at this time, I just didn't have enough community support to support this, so.
All right.
Do you have a motion on this?
We don't yet. Can I entertain a
I'm
motion?
just wondering who's got a motion?
Motion to disapprove,
Okay.
We have a motion to approve.
no, disapprove,
I'm sorry?
disapprove,
You have a
deny.
motion to deny?
Motion to deny, I
Okay.
apologize.
I'll second the denial.
Okay. Any further discussion? Councilmember
Just as a
Brady.
point of order, as we normally do, just so it's a little easier for the public, the motion to approve in a second, we would just vote against it. So you normally do a motion in the affirmative and then we would just vote to deny, to move it forward. This is a point of order.
Okay. Thank you. Well, what we have on the floor right now is a motion to
Yes, we have a motion on the floor to deny.
deny approval. Correct. All right. Any other discussion or questions? All in favor of the motion to deny, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The ayes have it. Mr. Morgan.
The next item is a simple amendment to our Board of Architectural Review regulations. We also have a similar one in number 3 that pertains to our Design Review Board. And this is an effort to allow for more individuals to be able to serve for these boards, because we always have difficulty finding folks who are willing to take the time to serve on these boards. And this would allow folks who work for a company in the city. In the past, it had been just the principals of those folks who work at that company to be eligible to serve. This was an effort to allow folks who aren't just city residents, but actually work in the city to be part of these boards. And in the past, like I said, it had been just the principals in these firms, but now it would allow other employees in these firms to serve as well. So it broadens the pools of folks who can serve on the boards of architectural review.
Would anyone like to be heard on this matter? Seeing none, it comes to council. We have a motion to approve. Councilmember Shealy.
I guess I have a couple of questions on this. With the BAR, are there attendance or participation requirements to remain on there? And I guess one of the concerns that I have with adding people to the BAR is I can continually hear how tough sometimes it is to get through the BAR. And so I don't, I almost, I kind of hesitate to add more people if it's going to make it more difficult, I guess, to move things through the city process, I guess. But is there any kind of attendance requirements or anything like that as well?
So point of clarification, Councilmember Shealy, this does not add any members to the Board of Architectural Review. It just broadens the pool that members of the BAR could be selected from. So, yes,
All
sir.
right, thank you.
Yes, sir.
Yes, Councilmember Sacred.
Thank you, Mayor. And Christopher, I know it doesn't add to this, but I've met with folks regarding BAR large and small. And I know this is not what we're talking about now, but I just want to throw it out there for discussion at some point about adding particularly BAR large, because the concern was that sometimes people have to recuse themselves
Mhm.
and and it's already a small number.
Yes.
So it creates issues when there's maybe only 2 or 3 are voting on a project. And to Councilman Shealy's concern, I don't think adding more people to the BAR is going to make the issues more complex. I think the processes and the back end need to be streamlined. I don't think adding more people, but I just wanted to share that are we ever going to maybe potentially react to that concern regarding increasing the numbers? 'Cause we
Well,
had
I
that
know we're
discussion.
continuously looking at that. We've got the alternates, of course, that
Yeah.
are available, which helps because some of our other boards don't even have alternates, but the BAR does have alternates. So that helps find people who don't normally have to serve every meeting who are available and experienced with the BAR to fill in if there aren't enough folks for a quorum.
Thank you.
All right. And Councilmember Parker.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Can you just again, I mean, what are we, an employee of a business, what are we hoping to achieve?
So what this relates to, for instance, is there might be architects who work for an architecture firm that's based in Charleston, but they aren't a principal of that firm, an owner of the firm. So they could, by virtue of this change, also be eligible to serve, and they could be just as valuable to the BAR as one of the principals from the firm. It just, again, broadens the pool of folks who could serve in this capacity.
Just a follow-up question, and I don't know, gentlemen, I mean, you've certainly been here longer than I have, but the idea of, we obviously takes a lot to find individuals who are willing to volunteer for this, but why, I mean, keeping this as citizens, a citizen-driven board, has that not been sort of helpful? Or is that why we're sort of opening the pool?
I think in the past, up until a few years ago, it had been required that you be an actual resident of the city of Charleston. Is that what you are relating to? Yes. But to broaden the pool, we started allowing principals of firms that are in the city. And then we realized that if there could be just the employees in these firms that are located in the city, that they have as much of an ownership stake in the city as principals and just general residents do.
Any other questions or comments? All in favor, please say aye. Any opposed, the ayes have it. Now, a very similar matter for the Design Review Board.
Yes, sir. And here's the ordinance right in front of you to allow the employees to serve. And also there is a one small change.
Hold on just a second, so give you the microphone.
Yeah, the ability to have a lay person on the DRB as well. And that is part of this amendment too.
All right. So we added a layperson as well as the ability for employees to serve in addition to the principal of the firm. Would anyone like to be heard on this matter? Seeing none, it comes to council. All right, we have a motion and a second. Councilmember Shade and then Appel.
So Christopher, can you then go through with, if we approve this amendment, what the composition would look like and how many quote unquote lay people we would have on this board?
Okay, I'll bring the microphone with me so I can, read through the whole ordinance here. And I think you all have this in front of you, but we'll just go through this. So that's BAR. So let's go back. So DRB. So DRB would consist of 7 board members and 2 alternates. Board members shall be citizens of the city of Charleston, with the exception of the professions, et cetera, et cetera. These members and alternates shall have demonstrated interest in and competence and knowledge of architecture, landscape architecture, and urban design. The board shall include 4 design professionals, including at least 1 registered architect, 1 registered landscape architect, 1 professional engineer, and 1 realtor or development professional, and a layperson.
So just to make sure that we're clear, you got 7 board members, 4 design, 1 landscape, 1 engineer, and 1 real estate, right?
Yes, and that's the landscape is also considered design. So the design professionals are a registered architect, a landscape architect, a professional engineer, and a realtor development professional.
And so without this amendment, how many lay people can be on this board without the amendment?
Well, at the recommendation of the CD committee, we're adding the allowance for a layperson on there. There had not been a requirement for a layperson in the past.
Right, but there was an issue that came up in which the last time we approved the composition of this board, that there were some at-large folks who also carried the label of either being a landscape or design or real estate, one of those required posts. That's why I want to make sure.
Correct. Some folks had been appointed in the open seats who were architects because staff knew that they would have a strong interest in good design, things like that. Yes.
I just want to make sure we're clear on this, okay? Because that's why I wanted you to go through that exercise. The composition as it's laid out now, and just want to make sure everybody's clear on this, does not include the availability, or it does include the availability as it stands right now for a layperson.
We don't have language right now for a layperson. This is adding that language at the recommendation of CD
Right.
committee.
But you're only adding 1 layperson on here.
Correct. And a layperson. It doesn't specify more than 1 or anything like that.
So I think and Councilmember Waring and I have had this experience, and we've had several discussions about this. The design review board is a little bit different than the Board of Architectural Review, the Board of Zoning Appeals, the other review boards. Its jurisdiction is very laid out, particularly it affects parts of Daniel Island, I believe parts of James Island, mainly in West Ashley. That's where we are mainly centered on that. And it's only on particular areas within that. The absence of a significant presence of lay people has hindered I think, the operation of this board. And I would want to make sure that we had a good balance of non-professionals, I should say. I think that's not the word I'm using, or lay persons on this. And correct me if I'm wrong on this, but even when we had the opportunity to put lay persons on here at either an at-large or whatever classification we want to assign to them, we still put folks who were professionals on here. Am I wrong on that? And
You're not. And part of that was because of the technical nature of things that they're looking at. I think Mr. Summer.
I understand that, but what I want on these boards is diversity. I want non-professionals on these boards. That's critically important when these issues come up before us, is that we have a opportunity of non-professionals who are taking part in these decisions on, particularly in the revitalization of West Ashley. And I'm looking at Councilmember Shealy, and he and I battled this issue that came up, and thank God we were successful with it. But just folks who are non-professionals need to have input on these decisions. So I want to make sure that there is and I understand we need the professionals on here. I'm not trying to dilute them. They bring a certain level of expertise, a certain level of perception on these boards, and they're very helpful, and it's critical that they are part of it. But to balance this out, I just want to make sure that we don't fool a layperson. That's my concern with this. And we call this person a layperson, who happens to be, by the way, fits one of these bills, or one of these categories. So I just want to make sure that the 7 you've identified, of the 7 current, all 7 of them have to have one of these categories of being a professional?
No.
Okay,
Just
that's
4 of them they have to be 4 design professionals, as listed there, and then at least 1 layperson. Yes.
And of those 4, so we have 3 opportunities to be a layperson.
That's correct.
But what has happened is, of those 3 opportunities, we still fill them with somebody who has a expertise in one of these areas. That's what I'm trying to avoid. That's what I don't want to happen. And perhaps as we amend this, that we make sure that those other 3 open spots, quote unquote, open spots, that at least 2 of those must be laypersons. So what you have here is you've got 7 spots, 4 have to fit a certain category by their profession, but we still but we still fill them with people who have one of these professional experiences. That's what I'm trying to avoid. I want to make sure that these boards are truly diverse. So I don't know if we can change the language on this to tweak it a little bit, but I would want to make sure that we have at least 2 lay people on this board.
Well, if you want to make a motion, you could say, and at least 2 laypersons.
I so move.
Second.
Could I ask a question at this point? Excuse me, council member. How are we defining layperson? I mean, I think of it being anybody in the church other than the clergy, but, you know, is a doctor a layperson in this, scenario?
It's anybody who isn't one of the things that we've
Correct.
defined in there. Everyone else in the world, except the 4 designated people,
right.
would be a layperson.
Just curious,
Doctor,
right? Would a,
city worker, doesn't matter.
would a clergy person be eligible
Yes,
even?
yes,
Okay,
yes.
just curious.
For purposes of this, they're a layperson. When they go
Okay.
out there,
Gotcha. Okay, this is one. Councilmember Appel.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and Councilmember Shade, I appreciate you bringing this forward. I have a different take on this. These are quasi judicial boards. These are not policy-making boards. These are technical boards. We have a very difficult design review process in the city of Charleston for good reason. That's why we are what we are. That's why the BAR is what it is. But when you've got folks appearing before these boards, whether it's a new business, whether it's a new affordable housing development, there's a lot of risk and uncertainty and cost that goes into these processes, revisions that take enormous amounts of time and cost a lot of money. And I think layperson input is very helpful in the overall operations of government when it comes to community forums, stakeholder groups, things of that nature, where we're trying to gather feedback from the public in terms of what the public wants to see, what the public doesn't want to see. But when you start coming into submitting extremely expensive technical documents for this board level review, I just don't think we want men and women off the street with no technical training opining on this, because again, it's never the purview of the DRB to decide whether or not we like this use, or this use is appropriate here, or we think this is something that fits right for the area. That is completely outside of the DRB's purview. They're not a policy-making board. They're not city council that sets the zoning policy. They're not even the planning commission. I think the planning commission is a place where the argument for a layperson is a lot more defensible. And when the city gets sued, when people appeal these boards, and by the way, the design review board is technically a board of architecture review under the Planning Act. There's no legal distinction between the DRB and the BAR. One of the ways you attack these decisions is you try to portray the decisions as arbitrary and capricious based on no evidence. And I can tell you right now, if I was appealing one of these decisions and that tie-breaking vote was a layperson, especially if there was comments on the record at the hearing that was just wildly all over the place and not moored to any sort of technical basis under the ordinance, I'd be jumping all over that. And I think we shouldn't have a different standard for the BAR and the DRB. I don't think the DRB should be sort of subject to this rule if the BAR isn't, and I don't think the BAR should be either. There's some very notable donut holes in the city of Charleston that are being developed right now in the county. I can tell you one of the main reason big time developers of big time hotels in formerly big time car dealerships on Savannah Highway do not want any part of the city of Charleston is because of the DRB. And what do I mean by that? Let's flesh this out a little bit. You spend hundreds of thousands of dollars with an LS3P or some of these top rate architectural firms. I'm not just picking on it, it costs big time money. And you go up in front of a DRB and they're just all over the place. Do this, do that, change this, change that. You have to throw those plans in the garbage and you have to come back, spend additional money to go back before these boards. And when these boards are populated by people that don't know anything about architecture, that don't know anything about landscape planning, that don't know anything about engineering, I don't think that's what we want on these boards. I'm all for citizen engagement. Citizen engagement is wonderful, but citizen engagement has its place. These are technical boards. These are quasi-judicial boards. They're not policy setting boards. And I don't think lay people belong on them. I think everybody that is on these boards needs to have technical knowledge and understanding so these boards can function appropriately and by law, so that we can not only have decisions that can withstand challenge and judicial scrutiny, but we can actually have a review process that the development community and the, private property ownership constituents in the community can have some faith in, that they're going to get a fair shake. And they're not going to just kind of be catching commentary, no matter how well-intentioned and how well-meaning, just is not sort of germane to what the role of the board is. So I think we should leave it as it is.
All right, point well taken. Councilmember Waring and Mitchell.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Mayor. Wrong board.
Went over my head. I missed that.
I believe both my colleagues are right. And I know I'm gonna get jumped on for this, not by you guys, but when the beach company brought their lawsuit on the Jasper, what is now the Jasper, one of the ruling was arbitrary and capricious. And that was against the architects on the board. Okay. So, and that was with the skilled people. And one of the pieces was the BAR ventured into height, scale, and mass. It was in the minutes. Okay. And if you a judge of property on height, scale, and mass, matter of fact, the judge went on, now the order was vacated, but the judge said, you've effectively rezoned the property. Okay. One of the things and the reason I think you gentlemen, both of you all are right, the professionalism definitely needs to be there. But we don't need the BAR West Ashley. The West Ashley, James Island, lesser degree Johns Island, because this board goes over there as well. We don't have the historic properties over there. Now, certain areas, Burns Down, South Windermere, Moreland, I'm right there fighting with you. But when you get up where Bees Ferry Road, a big business node now, Bees Ferry Road connects with Savannah Highway, all that's in the PSD. And we have no say-so. And there are millions of dollars of development going on there because they do, you're right, Councilmember Pell, they do not want this regulation. We've had this conversation before. Certain areas of West Ashley is being revitalized and we have absolutely no say because they don't want to go in front of this type scrutiny. And I don't think that's good for West Ashley. I don't think that's good for James Island. I don't think that's good for Johns Island. Certain areas of the historic aspect, I'm with you, but when you got people clearing out trees, there aren't any historic properties there. And the city needs to have a say-so. We've got almost $150 million worth of hotels going up, 2 of which are not in the city. One is right between Mr. Mayor, and you and I've had this conversation between Sam Rittenberg, Savannah Highway,
Orleans Road and DuPont Road, basically across from Citadel Mall. We should have say-so. And the reason we don't have say-so is because of the Corridor Review Board. So right now we're arguing about, well, we're discussing, we're not arguing about personnel, and I get that. Lay people need to be there, the professionalism need to be there, but some of these areas does not need to come under this level of scrutiny. Because a lot of it is in the effort to preserve historic architecture. And, you know, what they've done up with the Ashley River District and all that is admirable. I mean, Dawn and her Jacobs and all of you all did a great job up there. But we need something a little bit better. West Ashley, you know, I'll get off this horse, but I think the lay people need to be there. So that part about arbitrary and capricious could be applied to the best architect and to the best intentioned lay person. That's why I think both of you all are right. It's not one or the other. I think Mr. Summerfield, I guess we get to talk about this Design Corridor Review Board at another meeting. We were supposed to do that. We never did when we worked to help one hotel that's now underway, getting underway with the city. But as West Ashley develops, to have continuity, the best results are going to be if it comes through our planning department. Right now, we've got too much going on that's bypassing us because of our regulations, and we need to do something about that. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Councilmember Mitchell.
I don't know what I'm gonna say again now, but I believe that both of you all are right, my two colleagues. But when they said lay person, a lay person can give a lot of input to some of these same thing you're talking about. Myself, I'm just talking about myself. I had bricklaying apprentice, planning and estimation. I don't do it and have never done it, but I know it and I'm a lay. So you still can have people that have backgrounds of those same things that we're talking about that can even give input to those same categories. That's what I'm saying. So I think both of you are right, but you still can have people from a lay standpoint that knows these things, just like Charleston was built. Charleston was built by people who didn't have all this education, so to speak, you know, but they got it done and they did it. They had the expertise, in the same building that we're seeing now is still here. So they can give input on those boards at a time, even when they put the application on how we're going to do it. And you can have the background of a lay person to stay, but they're not working as an architect, they're not working as an attorney or whatever the case may be, but they have some background of these things, so they still can be a lay person and still give input to some of these same things. So that's what I'm saying, that you both are right in a sense, but I think lay can give a lot of information too, and be able to make sound decision if you may toward it, because that background, so a lot of them might have, but didn't have the schooling, if you may, or didn't have all these credentials. That's what I'm saying.
Can I ask a question first, Councilmember Shade, and maybe for you somewhat to respond to? Was the motivation to add this layperson designation on the DRB because you thought that those developers that were reluctant to come into the city and develop might be more inclined to if we had designated laypersons on the DRB? Was that the reason behind it?
No, let me explain, Mayor, and I'm glad you asked that question. Because what we're hearing today is accurate, but we're coming to the conclusion that Councilman Appel is reaching differently. So I've appeared in front of the Design Review Board numerous times, and we've been very successful with that. And we go back to Sumar Street and the defeat of the 20 pump gas station as a prime example of that. St. Andrews Park and Recreation, Playground Road, a daycare facility on Winston Street on St. Andrews Boulevard. And Councilmember Appel has, and I'm not picking on you, please don't think I am, but two experiences, one in which he represented represented the adverse party on an application at Old Parsonage Road, in which we were out of the county. It goes to Councilmember Waring's point It's out of the, out of the city, in the county. And if we had used the design review board, that plan would have been defeated. Councilmember Pale in his private life represented a developer in the area of Councilmember Carl Brady's district, which was in the county, and then wanted a new car lot there, new car dealership there. If that was in the city, that would have not have happened. And Councilmember Brady and I appeared at the county opposing Councilmember Pale. It was kind of an odd situation. But we were trying to make the point, if this fell within the jurisdiction of the design review board, this would not have been approved. So I'm not trying to water down at all this, but the flip side of the experience is this. On the corner of Sycamore and St. Andrews Boulevard, where there's a used boat lot and abandoned CVS and abandoned steak restaurant there. The developer has been trying to get approval. And what has happened with that, and I've appeared numerous times with that, I'm not sure where it stands right now. It gets too technical. And it would have, in my experience has been with all of these times I've appeared in front of that is sometimes you just need to have that person who's not so technical to take a step back and go, wait a minute. Let's look at this from a different lens. Let's look at this from a different perspective. So that the complaint that you're making, Councilmember Appel, is that they're avoiding perhaps is because we've got to use this a little bit. And I hate to use this word common sense. That sounds demeaning, but you just use a little bit of ordinary citizen, non-professional sense to look at it from a different lens, from a different perspective, to sort of tone it down just a little bit, not to violate the nature and intent of what we're trying to do with revitalization of West Ashley, but try to get away from a little bit of the sometimes hyper technical, super technical aspects of what takes place. I mean, to the point that because it's so expensive, you hire these professionals, you hire these architects, you hire these landscape architects and all these other experts, and you go in front of the design review board and they come back with these technical things, and I'm rolling my eyes going, oh dear God, wait a minute. If I had a layperson on there to sort of tone it down a little bit, they would add a different perspective to it. Because then they have to go back, like your point, they have to go back and redesign and retool. And so all I'm seeking here is balance. That's all I'm seeking here is just balance. In that, if I'm a landscape architect or if I'm a realtor and I'm sitting next to somebody who doesn't fit that bill, and they make a comment or make an observation, maybe that adds a little bit of light to the conversation.
Gotcha.
And so we want West Ashley, we want these other areas on Daniel Island and James Island to be subject to some of this review, and we want it done right. We want it to be consistent with Plan West Ashley. But we want also that these applicants have, to your point, Councilmember Pell, so that is not arbitrary and capricious. It has this balance to it. And I think that is going to make this process a whole lot more, what's the word I want to use? Not clearer, not transparent, but fairer. Thank you, fairer. And that's an equity level to this thing there. And that is what I'm trying to do. I'm not trying to grease the wheels for one side or another, but it's also kind of important this way. And I've said this several times. When citizens appear at these design review boards or they appear here, it really is the finest level of democracy. I mean, when you think about it, you having that citizen, and we'll hear from some citizens in a few minutes, their opportunity to address the people who make policy decisions, the people who make these quasi-judicial decisions. And so having a citizen on those boards who are fit this lay category then provides the opportunity for that layperson. That may be a person who lives in Old Town Acres or lives in the Crescent to say, wait a minute, time out. You know, I'm coming to you with a different perspective. I'm sorry, I've rambled on way too long. I apologize for that, Mayor, but I'm not trying to water it down. I'm just trying to make it more balanced. That's all.
All right, thank you. Would anyone else like to be heard? Do we have a motion on the floor?
And Mr. Mayor, so we have two motions on the floor. There was one to approve it, and then Councilmember Shade made a motion to amend it to at least two laypersons, and that was seconded by Councilmember Waring. So I think you would vote on the motion to amend unless the original motion maker wants to accept. Councilmember Waring made the original motion to approve.
Will you accept that amendment, sir?
I accept the amendment.
All
Thank
right.
you. Thank you, Madam
So,
Clerk.
so
for
we
bringing it up.
have a motion on the floor to approve this ordinance with the amendment or the change that rather than "and a lay person" and at least two lay persons. All right. Any final call? Councilmember Rappel.
Can I just have a 2-minute closing argument here?
Yeah.
Okay. And I want y'all to please hold me to it. Okay. And Councilman Waring made a very good point. Even when you have the best of the best, most trained, most competent, most professional architects and engineers and landscape architects on these boards can be very perilous because at the end of the day, we're in the realm of subjectivity. We're in the realm of aesthetics, and different people can have different opinions. That's what causes the going back to the drawing board mentality. But some of the cases that Councilman Shade alluded to about certain types of uses not being able to get through a DRB, a DRB would have stopped that. You're talking about getting into zoning now. You're talking about a architectural review board voting down a project because they don't like the use, whether it's a car lot or whether it's affordable housing or whether it's something else. These boards oftentimes use pretextual means to shut down projects they don't like. I caught the town of Mount Pleasant design review board members conspiring with each other on emails for months ahead of a hearing that my client was appearing before. They were trying to shut the project down because they didn't like it. It wasn't about the type of dormers or the type of paint or the type of material in the roof. These boards can be very, very problematic. And when I'm a person in the county and I'm making that decision about whether to come in or not, the going back to the drawing board's tough. That hits you in the pocketbook. But if you can get a bunch of lay people on these boards animated by Facebook groups and politics saying that I don't like this use, this is going to make it harder for affordable housing projects to be done anywhere that's subject to the DRB. And that's just my view on it. This is a very laudable intent to get more people, more regular people involved in the process. Regular people belong at City Hall for city council meetings, planning commission meetings, citizen stakeholder groups. I know I'm getting past my 2 minutes. They don't belong on the DRB. And this is something I really hope we can carry forward into our zoning rewrite conversation. There are other ways to get at regulating architecture and aesthetics that don't involve going before a group of human beings. Charleston County has architectural regulations built into their zoning code. There's just objective criteria that you have to qualify for. That's the kind of stuff I think we need to be looking at for Outer West. Actually, get rid of the DRB in certain parts of the city. Keep it in places like the Ashley River Historic District that are genuinely historic. But if someone wants to put a gas station next to Bees Ferry Road, let's just put some basic criteria in our text of our zoning ordinance. We don't like this stuff. We'd like you to do this kind of stuff, and we'll get quality architecture. It's not going to be the Taj Mahal. It's not going to be, the Sistine Chapel, but it's going to be development that will provide a certain amount of consistency and predictability that the development community will see the value and benefit of annexing into the city of Charleston rather than staying in the unincorporated county where there is more predictability and they don't have to run these risks, these serious financial risks of having to appear before what can be very mercurial, subjective boards that frankly do not recognize and understand their narrow scope. They're not there to talk about use, but oftentimes use decisions are made under the pretext of various other types of considerations. So it's a very good discussion. I can't support two and really don't feel comfortable supporting one.
All right. Thank you very much. Councilmember Sacker.
Thank you, Mayor. Just a point of clarification. We are voting on the amended version of this, which is going to include two.
That's
Like-
correct.
Okay.
Councilmember Gregg.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. To Councilmember Appel's point, if we look through the comments that DRB makes on some of these designs that get submitted, they're extremely technical. You look at what the architecture commentary is, the engineer's commentary, the landscape architect's commentary. And so I'm just curious functionally how this would work to put a layperson on this board and how they're going to respond and add value to the board. I mean, ultimately what we're looking for is a board that functions more effectively and provides more value to the citizens. Without a very technical background in one of these subjects, I just don't see how that happens. So I gotta say, I'm with Councilmember Appel on this one. I don't really feel comfortable supporting two, and I definitely much less one. Thank you.
All right. Anyone else? Councilmember Parker.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just have to, look around this room. There's 13 of us. We don't even have this type of oversight, this type of technical, and we make decisions for this city as a whole. So I'm a regular person, I think. I consider myself a regular person here on city council. So if we had these type of restrictions, we wouldn't have regular people in this room making decisions for the city. So to say that there's a lay person, too many regular people on a technical review committee, completely disagree. I support I support adding the multiple regular people positions because I think it's an important message. It doesn't all have to be technical. If anything, I would support getting rid of the DRB in areas because while we think that they're just looking at the technicalities and the design process, they are being subjective. They are using, their own personal decisions on these boards, their feelings, their Facebook, whatever, like you said, the conspiracy. So regular people aren't a bad thing. We need them in this room as well as all the committees in our city. Thanks.
Good point. Councilmember Waring.
Just to give it back to the example, thank you, Council Lady. Back to Council, for a great question. In the district I represented, we had a house that was 52 years old, I think, Mr. Morgan. Everything around it had turned limited business or better. And the people on the opinion was because it was historic, it couldn't be torn down or demolished. Fortunately, the board reconsidered that, and that's been, and the hotel is going in now, but it was not in the neighborhood that where somebody's gonna renovate that house and husband, wife, 2 dogs and a cat and a couple kids gonna move in. It was a transmission repair shop across the street. Citadel Mall, which is also in the district I'm pleased to represent, is 48 years old. A couple of more years, it's gonna be 50 years old. And then it's gonna be a historic property that the Design Corridor Review Board is gonna come and say, wait a minute, you can't go to an open concept because that's a historic property. Do we really believe to revitalize Citadel Mall, we have to keep it all under one roof to where it is today? Some of the Ash River District, perfect use. Citadel Mall, not so much. But we're kind of evolving into regulations that, again, is keeping development from commonplace and in particular West Ashley and James Island, Leslie Green, Johns Island. So George Washington was a layperson, by the way.
All right. Anyone else? I'm going to call the questions. All in favor of the motion to have 2 laypersons included on the DRB, please say aye. Any opposed? Let's have a roll call.
Councilmember Gregg. Councilmember Shealy.
Aye.
Councilmember Saccharin. Councilmember Mitchell. Councilmember Brady. Councilmember Waring. Councilmember Gregory is absent. Councilmember Waring. Councilmember Seekings. Councilmember Shade. Councilmember Bowden.
Nay.
Councilmember Appel. Councilmember Parker,
Aye.
Mayor Tecklenburg. The motion fails.
All in favor, please say aye. Any opposed?
All right, so this is for the approval of E3 with the addition of one layperson, Councilmember Gregg. Councilmember Shealy,
Aye.
Councilmember Saccharin, Councilmember Mitchell, Councilmember Brady, Councilmember Gregory, Councilmember Waring, Councilmember Gregory is absent. Councilmember Waring, Councilmember Seekings, Councilmember Shea, Councilmember Bowden,
Aye.
Councilmember Appel, Councilmember Parker,
Aye.
Mayor Tecklenburg. The motion carries.
Great discussion, everyone, and I do agree with Councilmember Appel that some of these issues that you raised and we've talked about could be addressed in our zoning rewrite over the next year. So we'll more to come. Our last public hearing matter, I believe, is well, I'll just turn it over to Mr. Morgan again.
Okay. Hopefully this one's a little bit simpler for everybody. This is this is essentially what we in our office determined was probably an oversight. This is an ordinance that was adopted about 5 years ago to make it a little bit easier to build affordable housing in diverse residential and commercial districts in the city. And as you see, the list of diverse residential districts that this ordinance would apply to is leaving out commercial transitional. And we do have a number of properties around the city, including some that are being considered for affordable housing that have commercial transitional zoning. And so it would make sense to add those to other commercial districts such as limited business, general business that it already applies to. And that essentially, this is essentially an ordinance that helps us look at density beyond just the actual unit numbers, but it looks at number of bedrooms versus the amount of square footage on the lot and makes it a little bit easier to build affordable housing in these locations. And it would add, the ordinance is already in place. It would just add CT to that already existing list of districts that it's allowed in.
All right. Would anyone like to be heard on this matter? Seeing none, it comes to council. We have a motion to approve in a second. Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye. Any opposed? The ayes have it. Next is approval of our city council minutes from August 15th. Any additions, deletions, corrections? All in favor, please say aye. Any opposed? The ayes have it. Next up is our citizens participation period. Madam Clerk.
Yes, we have 7 people signed up to speak. And the time will be 2 minutes. Anthony Bryant.
Mr. Bryant. Y'all come forward. Please state your name and address. And thanks for being with us tonight.
Anthony, I'm glad to be here. Anthony G. Bryant, 2123 Cortland Avenue, South Carolina 29403, Bryant Group, Inc. I got my information back from the governor's office, my SCDOT certification. It's something called separate sovereign. And that's when, you know, the state has an issue and the feds have an issue in terms of a lot of issues. And so I was brought to my attention many years ago regarding Office on Violence Against Women and also other related matters I speak against, as well as the DEA, the FBI, and any other group we can speak against, because we can speak against those groups. And we should speak against those groups when we have issues within our community. But to say that I know I'm involved, no. The causation, yes, I do know the causations of the problems within the Black community, which is slavery. Okay, so the civil rights dealt with Jim Crow. It didn't deal with slavery. It didn't deal with that. If you think about the Postal Curry in 1803, that probably was transferred from 1803 to now. Slaves were transferred from 1803 to 1866. What if we had any wealth from that? Let's be real. I'm a very real person about being Black, okay? I'm not going to play any games with the governor. The governor is the tree, sled is the rope, and I'm right here. That's what they're saying in my documents. What you have there are actual facts that I received as a former BZA member. I understand ordinances, I understand zonings. Public safety is number one. You're concerned about property, women, and children. And only you Black, you get hanged. Okay, so a white man's concerned about his property, his children, and his women, he's gonna take you out of here. Okay, that's the reality of my public comment. That's real. And it's still real to this very day. And so what the school board meeting, yes, it's our professional African-American man, right? Well-dressed, well-educated, hung. Qualified, impeccable Black man, great character, cancer. The man is sick. And they humiliated him on what they said, a Liberty, well, John Rutledge, Pierce Butler, Charles Courtworth Pinckney, Charles Pinckney,
Time.
all owned slaves. Liberty.
Tony Daniel.
Good afternoon, Mayor, Council. I'll give you an example of problematic. Problematic is when the law says you can't close a road without a court order or a vote by city council, you have one. Problematic is when neighbors are writing that we want to keep the closed roads closed at the request of a council member to try and sabotage my efforts to get the roads in the shape that they were ordered to be in, which is we are not closing the roads. We're going to leave the roads open. I don't know how y'all can sit here and allow this to happen to me. You know, I hear you talk about, well, we need to do the right thing. We need to do what our purpose is. Well, your purpose is to enforce the law. Nobody's even tried to come up with a compromise. And as it stands, if you leave it like this, then the next person that comes along is going to have a problem with it. You have Title 57 says you are required to maintain a road in South Carolina. And if you fail to do so, you're guilty of a misdemeanor. So are y'all just going to sit here and allow this to continue? It is blatantly illegal. A road with trees and a fence in it is not open. And Mayor, I have a couple of questions for you on a sideline note. I was there at the meeting last night. Very good. It was very nice. I want to make sure I understand. Did you say that Chief Reynolds was partially responsible for the riots? I didn't quite understand it. And I look forward to that later on, hearing that clear up. And I do appreciate what you said about the flooding. I don't know that all the money that's spent, including my family taxes, should simply go to mitigate the flooding downtown. What about James Island where I live? I mean, don't we deserve our money? I don't say that it shouldn't be a priority for the city, but I don't know that you need to dedicate all the money to the city, and you need to get ongoing projects saying, okay, if we get this funded, then we're going to get this funded. Thank you very much.
Mohammed Idris.
Evening, Mohammed Idris. Last city council meeting, the mayor recognized someone that he thought should get an honor for coming to see him every first of the month for 8 years. Him, former Mayor Rowley, they should give me $1 trillion because I came every month to see Mayor Rowley. Not only came, give them good ideas, many of my ideas they have implemented. The one I have right now is to establish a full-up Simmons multi-million-dollar cultural center on the peninsula so that we could be the eyes and the ears for poor people in this area. Just like the people are fighting for James Island, Johns Island, Daniel Island, all these other areas. We as African Americans, male, have to stand up front to show our children and our women folks that we have not just been sitting on the sideline. We have made great contribution to this city, and we want a space on the peninsula. Thank you.
Mary Jo Fairchild.
Good evening. My name is Mary Jo Fairchild. I am an employee at the College of Charleston. Many of us are asking for public answers as to why the mayor's office intervened in the assessment of the racial bias audit, why the work of the key researcher was stopped. This was to be an independent, unbiased assessment of the Charleston Police Department's progress. Now it is tainted. We don't know if we can trust the final report, if it will have integrity and independence that is foundational for the assessment. The lack of communication and transparency serves to raise suspicions further. Do we conclude that the rumors are true, that Mr. Kale's work was stopped for political reasons, as the preliminary report perhaps somewhat threatened the mayor's office? That they did not want the report published because before the election? And even worse, that this will impact the conclusions for a more politically pleasing result. Please tell us. Only then can we assess the validity of the final report for the audit assessment. Thank you.
Rebecca Hines.
Good evening. My name is Reverend Rebecca Hines. I am the minister of the Unitarian Church at 4 Archdale Street, just a few blocks away. I'm here because so many of us have been working for years to address racial disparities in policing in Charleston. And I know it hasn't been easy or fast, nor without conflict, but progress is being made. Charleston Police Department seems on track with audit implementation, and the long-awaited external assessment is underway. But a significant event has occurred which causes us to question the intentions of the city to deliver an honest assessment of the audit's progress. Mr. Kale's work was stopped just after sharing his preliminary report. But here's the thing, Mr. Kale has the respect and trust of the community. He is the only independent and unbiased voice in this process. And for the city to intervene to put his work on hold and to share no plausible explanations points to the reasons not being in the community's interest. Mr. Mayor, Mr. Shade, will you communicate to the public the actual reason for the halt, how the assessment is whole and on track, and how we can be assured of the integrity of the final report? Thank you.
Carlette Geddes.
Good evening. My name is Carlette Geddes, 2472 Flamingo Drive, Charleston, 29414. Silence, cover-up, and misdirection are tools in play by the city mayor's office to keep from the public what is really going on with the external assessment for the racial bias audit. Just as Mr. Kale and associates issued their preliminary report of findings, the mayor's office intervened to stop their work. They were given no explanation, nor was the community. Then a story about a $15,000 contract dispute was rumored. Really? $15,000 to hold up such important, long-awaited, and debated public safety work. 8 weeks later, we still have not heard if that was resolved or even true, despite numerous calls for transparency from the mayor and councilpersons. So, is Mr. Kale back on the project? How have Mr. Kale's and the assessment's deliverables been changed? And why is it so hard to get honest answers to these basic questions of deep community concern? Thank you.
Jean Richardson.
Good evening. My name is Eugene Richardson. I'm the pastor of St. Andrew's Presbyterian Church on Johns Island. Now, many of us in the community have been following the racial bias audit implementation with high expectation for it making our city safer and more just. I'm appreciative of the invocation that was given at the start of this meeting. So we are greatly concerned that the mayor's office intervened this summer with the independent assessment and halted the research of Kale Associates. Now, press releases indicate the work is on track, yet Mr. Kale's work was stopped for at least 6 weeks and the new report schedule is over 6 months late. But most importantly, we can no longer be confident that the final report will be truthful and untainted by political maneuvering. This intervention and the city's refusal to be transparent is strong reason for community mistrust. Mr. Mayor, Mr. Tecklenburg, you can still impact that. Will you communicate while the intervention and what changes were made to the researcher's work, scope, and or recommendation? Question, Mr. Tecklenburg. Thank you.
And those were all the speakers that we had signed up. We did have, in addition to the comments submitted by Mr. Bryant and Mr. Daniel, who already spoke tonight, and those were sent to council in full. We did also receive a comment by telephone from a tourist stating that she and her family visited Charleston twice a year, and that on her past visit, she was threatened by a Confederate flag protester at White Point Gardens. She asked if the city really wanted that kind of representation, as she found it to be distressing and distasteful. And those were all the comments we received.
Did we miss anybody? Thank you all for being with us this evening. We appreciate it. So next up is our petitions and communications. We have authorization for an outside agency academy agreement between City of Charleston Police Department and Town of Monk's Corner Police Department. Can I entertain a motion to approve? Any discussion on that? Any questions? All in favor, please say aye. Any opposed? The ayes have it. So next up, we had asked to get a report. Is Mr. Jackson with us? Eric Jackson is going to come forward and give us a report on the Palmetto Artisan program. And then Mr. Jackson also has a special recognition to make for one of our young entrepreneurs. Mr. Jackson, would you also introduce everyone else that's with you? Y'all can come up.
Good evening, everyone. We presented each council member with a Palmetto Rose and a brochure about the program. I just want to take time just to recognize Mr. Jacob Brown, Mr. Angine Davis, who's the co-owner of Community Solutions, and my wonderful wife, who's the brains of the operation. So we can't take all the credit. This summer, this is the second summer that we had the program, and we braved through some 100+ degree weather, making this program successful. And I'm not going to hold your time, but tonight we're going to present Mr. Jacob Brown. He's our first official business owner, and we're going to present him with a certificate from the state.
So this is Nocturnal Apparel Company, and official designation from the Secretary of State as to the existence of this business. We congratulate you. It came, Nocturnal Apparel, I think, derived from the entrepreneurship training that he received through our program. And would you like to tell us a little bit about your business?
Hello, y'all.
Speak right up.
Oh, hello, everyone. My name is Jacob Brown. I am a native from Charleston, South Carolina. A little bit about my brand. What Nocturnal really means, it stems from a quote that says, "You are your greatest self in your darkest moments," and that's what I believe my brand to be all about. Thank you.
Wow. Congratulations. Let's go get a picture.
You're welcome.
You are your greatest, tell me that quote again. You're your greatest.
You are your greatest self in your darkest moments.
Oh, it's coming.
It's coming. It's coming soon.
You'll be back.
Thank you, everyone.
Eric, how many folks did we put through, the artisan program this year?
25.
25.
Yes, sir.
Young entrepreneurs. Thank you for the service you're providing, for these young men and women and for, good entrepreneurship, in the city of Charleston. Thank you so much.
Thank you to you, council, for your support of this program for the white.
Thank you so much. All right. So next leads us to our council committee reports and first, Councilmember Saccharin.
Yes, please. Just momentarily. Hey, Eric and AJ, I just want to say that I want to say thank you for everything y'all do. It's not, this is just one effort, but these guys are involved across our community with our youth. And AJ in particular, I've known for years. I just want to say thank you for the mentorship for these kids. This is an awesome program and you guys are true assets to our community. So thank you so much.
Very good. All right. So first up is our Committee on Community Development, Councilmember Mitchell. Oh, I'm missing something?
Yeah, there's a
Oh,
council
I'm sorry. We
communication
have a
from
council
Councilmember.
communication presentation on drainage improvements in East Oak Forest requested by Councilmember Waring, and I presume Mr. Fountain is going to
Well-
give a report.
Well, I couldn't make the Public Works meeting because I had caught up. And apologies, Madam Clerk, so I wanted in Orangeburg yesterday. That's why I couldn't make the meeting
Right.
on time, but I'd just like to defer till the next meeting.
Okay. So we deferred those reports at the committee meeting yesterday.
Right.
If it's your pleasure, we'll defer that to the next
Thank you.
both
Mr. Mayor.
committee meeting and council meeting.
That'd be great. Thank you.
Okay,
Mr. Mayor.
great. Thank you. So then we do go to our council committee reports, and first up is our Committee on Community Development. Councilmember Mitchell.
Councilmember Mitchell, I think your mic isn't on.
Oh, yes, thank you.
Could y'all speak more directly right into the microphones?
Yes.
Thank you.
The community development meeting was held on Thursday, September 21st, 2023. And we had a couple of items here. First, we had old business and new business. I'm gonna come back to the old business, but under the new business, we had the status of the affordable housing development at 573 Meeting Street by the Michaels Company and Stacy. They explained to us where they are now and how they're moving along. And thank the city for all the money that we received from the city and everyone else who was assisting with them. And that if you know, the 573 Meeting Street is where the homeless shelter was. And under number 2, the status of affordable housing development, the low-line affordable housing, we had a presentation from the NHE Robertson Villa. And the project is coming along. They had some stops in it, getting the money and everything together, but they are on track now. So we hope to see that coming back very shortly. And number 3, we had the status of the Grove on Johns Island, formerly named the Fenwick site, and request for amendment to the developer strategy resource housing group under Sam Coates, and he was telling us another 14 months, we should start seeing something going there on Johns Island. So that'll be coming up pretty soon. So all these things are just status they was giving us, upgrading us on what is going on. Then on number 4, we had amendment and an update to the plan unit development, which is the Videra site. And I think y'all know where that's located on near Beesbury Road. And it was giving us information on it. And it's how many units going to be there and what their plans are. And that was approved by the Community Development Committee. It was voted and approved. Then we went back up to the number 1, which is the old business to certify the direction to city staff regarding Sumar Street. A motion was made and the motion failed. So we are right back at it. So that motion failed. So we didn't go any further with that. So that's my report. And I'm asking for approval of my report.
All right. And we have a motion and a second. I saw Councilmember Shealy wanted to be recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I really want to talk about item B4 a little bit. I would ask that the community, the Community Development Committee and the Real Estate Committee, look back at the Plan West Ashley master plan when we're making decisions, when we're making a decision to make a major change on a PUD that absolutely follows Plan West Ashley master plan. And I printed off a little bit off of the master plan. I won't take long, but I'm gonna read a few things. This comes straight from the master plan. Many residents commute to work outside West Ashley, which contributes to traffic problems and decreases quality of life. Many residents also are required to drive for shopping, dining, entertainment, particularly west of I-526. There is a strong community belief that growth, particularly high-density growth, has happened in West Ashley without full regard to the infrastructure needed to support the growth and how growth would impact the existing residential character. Also under community concerns, West Ashley will lose its character if new development does not accommodate small local businesses. There are no small community scale retails and services in outer West Ashley. Under vision, grow in the right places in the right ways. Shorten trips to new work, entertainment, and recreation destinations. Provide better infrastructure to support the growing population. Attract a wider range of businesses so more people who live in West Ashley can also work in the community. Cultivate a West Ashley where all kinds of small and local businesses can thrive. Support more small-scale community shopping opportunities in outer West Ashley that look and feel more like Avondale and inner West Ashley. Improve plan review and permitting processes and work with local and regional economic development groups to entice revitalization and attract new businesses and employment centers. When surveyed, people said the one word that came to mind, number one, was congestion. Number two was traffic. So I appreciate Mr. Somerville showing me how to pull traffic counts, because I went on to the DOT site and I pulled traffic counts, and I was able to see traffic counts in outer West Ashley from 2018 to 2022. In 2022, there were 45,300 cars per day traveling on Glen McConnell Parkway. Traffic data was also taken right in front of the Verdier property that comes right up on Bees Ferry. At that specific point, there are 27,800 cars that pass that property daily, more than Sam Rittenberg Boulevard and Sumar Street, and more than Old Town Road and Sumar Street, which we're all very, very familiar with. The difference between those two spots is everybody that's driving on Bees Ferry Road along those times at 7:30 in the morning or 5:30 in the afternoon, they're all going in the same direction, where along Sumar Street, you're heading two directions. So in 2018, traffic counts for Glen McConnell Parkway were at 34,800. So the traffic has increased by 10,500 cars per day. That's over 30% increase in 4 years. And I will assure you that it's growing faster right now with all the development that's going on out there. With all the new residential that's happening, and if we continue to grow by 30% like this, it's not going to be sustainable. We don't have the infrastructure for this. We have a horrible traffic problem, and we currently have a PUD in place that supports what West Ashley Revitalization said. And our community development just voted unanimously to do away with that PUD and put more residential there. The people that are moving in there that are going to be residential are now going to be part of that traffic problem going up Glen McConnell to go to work in the morning. And they're going to be part of the Glen McConnell problem coming back. We had a solution with the PUD that we had, because there are going to be, if we stay with that existing PUD, we've got businesses that are supporting the community. So people don't have to drive past 526 to go see their doctor or to go do whatever they need to do. They don't have to get on Glen McConnell and add to that 45,000 people that are going up and down the road up there. they can use those businesses right along there. You know, I mean, obviously, it was two properties that came up on this. One, we're arguing on what to put there that has bus stops and transit options on it, and one that doesn't. One that we as a city own, and another one that we're getting ready to spend $5 million on if this PUD is approved by city council. Affordable housing is important. And the Sumar Street property, though, I will tell you, is no more important to the people in that part of West Ashley than this Verdier site is to the people of outer West Ashley. They are equally important. I'm not going to be the one that's going to suggest put affordable housing on there after all that we've been out there. But I'm telling you, that's what you're doing to this Verdier site. But it's worse because you're adding to a problem that is horrible for that part of West Ashley. And when Long Savannah comes, and when these developments out along Savannah Highway that are a little bit further out, and Dorchester County that are coming down Ashley River Road now, possibly the city of North Charleston now, all of these developments coming through there, it's going to grow faster than 30%. And we're going to be part of the problem because we're going to put more people in that traffic when we can come up with a little bit of a solution. No, it's not hundreds and thousands of people that we're putting on the road, but we've got a solution with what we've got. And you know what? With most properties, we don't have a choice. People have property rights to their properties that they have. In this case, we're making the decision. We're changing what's in that PUD. Shame on us. Shame on us if we add to the problem rather than trying to fix it. Shame on us for pushing the outer part of West Ashley off to the side. Like I said, affordable housing is very, very important. This PUD is absolutely wrong for the people that have to sit in that traffic every day. If you don't believe me, I will invite you. I will meet you I'll meet you at Verdier Road, and I will drive for you so you don't have to drive through that horrible traffic, just so you can experience what it's like at 7:30 in the morning, or just so you can experience what it's like at 5:30 in the afternoon. I drive that every day at that time. I know very well, and I have hundreds of people that want me to stand up for them, my constituents. We're not voting on this tonight. We've got two more. We've got a public hearing on this. It's a long way to come from Bees Ferry down here to City Hall for that public hearing, but I hope the people that are concerned about this will show up. We'll see. And if they're not concerned about it, I hope they'll show up and prove me wrong. But I bet you there'll be very few that will say, oh, it's worth sitting in the traffic jam that we already have and that we're going to have over the next several years. So I appreciate the time, Mr. Mayor. I know we're not voting on it, but I had to get that out. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Shealy, and he's correct. We can accept the report this evening, but this is being referred to the Planning Commission and then coming back to us for a public hearing. Isn't that correct? Yeah.
Can you,
I'm sorry.
can you speak into, you're going to come to the mic, Christopher.
Oh, I'm sorry. Let's get this clear. I might have said that incorrectly.
Yes, Mayor, Planning Commission did review that at their last meeting and recommended approval
Okay.
of the amendments to Verdier. And so it will come to council on October 10th for first read and then for public hearing on October 24th.
Okay. That's what. Councilmember Sacklin.
Thank you, Mayor. And thank you, Councilmember Shealy. I'm on CD. We did vote to approve that, but I guess this is how it works. That's appreciative that you spent some time for those facts and figures. I certainly, at this point, given with your hesitation, I'm leaning at supporting it, but I'm glad that you brought that up. My comment though is Sumar Street. So the night is still early. It's only 6:44. We could sit here for the next couple hours and debate. I just wanted to revisit the conversation we had. I didn't get that either. I want to have a conversation about the CD committee and also propose a possible solution and a path forward. So during our conversations, we spoke ad nauseum. Council members spoke ad nauseum about the engagement process, lacking the engagement process being fraught with, certain sides trying to pit other sides against the other. And as a council member, I want to respect that. And I understood that. And I hear that. Council at CD committee, it was clear there was an impasse with where we were headed. But as someone that works in a public agency and someone that is a staff member in a public agency, when you get directives from boards and you get directives from your supervisors, you take those seriously and you get to work on that. So my fear is that we're going to provide a directive to staff that is not fully baked and fully could change in the coming months. So given that, all the concerns that I've heard from fellow council members regarding engagement, and also in addition to that, the financial aspect of this. So are we ready to terminate a contract with Landmark or whatever developer comes forward and lose that potential $600,000, $700,000? I don't think any of us are. As a taxpayer, I think that's a bit foolish to go down that path. So I'm proposing that we rethink option 4. I don't think any of us here are saying that option 4 doesn't exist. My concern is I don't think we've got a fully baked option 4. I want to hear from West Ashley residents because I will be 100% honest. Every email, every communication I received from my constituents in West Ashley supported option 1 or 2. I can't remember what they are anymore because it's been so many, but supported an option that had mixed retail, civic space, green space, and that's what they supported. But I'm also want to be respectful of fellow council members that feel they heard different. So in the absence of clear direction from our residents, I think it's incumbent upon us to go back to them and engage. And it may end up back to where we started from. But as a council member, I just can't give directives to staff or support the mayor giving directives to staff when we're unclear about what we're hearing from residents. So I'm just simply proposing that we entertain option 4, but go back with a clear 90-day timeline to figure out what residents want. I don't think that's asking too much. I think that's a common sense approach to this. And I think it gets everyone on the same page in terms of expectations. This will give West Ashley residents that were vehemently opposed to it and give West Ashley residents that were fully supportive of it another opportunity, and then we can put this to bed. I just don't think that where we're headed right now is conducive for the city. It's not conducive for council. And quite frankly, the potential of losing $600,000 or $700,000 doesn't sit well with me. Those are my comments.
Councilmember Saccharin, thank you for that. Before any other motion could be entertained, we do have a motion on the floor to accept a committee report first. Councilmember Mitchell, would you like to add any comment before we at
No,
least
we can
accept?
Accept the report, and then I'll come back and make.
Okay. Is that suitable? Any other questions or comments about accepting the overall report
Just the report.
from the committee chair?
I just have a question.
Councilmember Shade?
Councilmember Mitchell mentioned that a motion failed. What was the motion? On Sumar Street, you said there was a motion made about Sumar Street that
Give
failed.
me the two, on, Mayor?
Madam Clerk can
give us-
recall the motion that was made, I believe.
Yes, a motion was made to pay Landmark what they are currently owed. Ask them to participate in option 4, and if they do not want to participate, to put the item out for RFP.
So that was the motion that was failed. All right. So we can come back to discussion Sumar Street, but if y'all don't mind, let's go ahead and accept the report and then we'll can entertain any other matters that y'all would like. Any discussion about accepting the report? All in favor, please say aye. Any opposed? The ayes have it. Now back to Councilmember
There
Mitchell.
is one name, from Councilmember Shealy, just for the
Nay, did
record.
not accept.
Councilmember
Yeah, Mr.
Mitchell.
Mayor, and my colleague.
Madam Clerk, point of order, I'm gonna vote nay along with Councilman Sheila.
All right, so we have 3 nays, council members Shealy, Waring, and Shade.
All right.
Yes.
Councilmember Mitchell.
Okay, what I want to say, I don't think that people are listening, was listening to the prayer I made. You know, I'm a person that's, when I pray, I'm very, very serious about what I'm saying. And I hope it penetrated into my colleagues here. But I see that it went out the window somewhere. You know, I don't play around when it comes to the Most High. And when I'm praying, when He given me certain things to say. I'm a little different from a lot of people because I get different feelings and I was blessed in a different way in knowing certain things that he have touched me to do. Even when we getting back with that Sumar Street controversy, but we had so many meetings pertaining to Sumar Street, the West Ashley Revitalization Committee. And that's what a lot of this came from, what we were trying to do. And I think at the last, not the last, but before the last community development meeting, we stayed there for almost 3 hours, hashing out that plan to come up with something to give the West Ashley people to start with. So that wasn't just come out of the blue. That's after all this thing that was happening with the revitalization committee for West Ashley. That's what this came out of what they say they wanted to see. So it wasn't a fly-by-night thing that people didn't say this or people didn't say that. We had it all. And we also had it here. We also had that on at the auditorium, and we had the meeting there also. When I had everyone that spoke who wanted to speak at that meeting did. And we heard it all. We heard it all. So it wasn't just something that came up. But see me on this council here, and I've been here all these years, we are playing some type game and they're getting next to me. It's really getting next to me. I just didn't come here yesterday. I have went through a whole lot with different colleagues on city council. A lot of people think I don't know things. I know a whole lot. I don't know everything, but I know a whole lot. And what I'm seeing here, and I don't play politics. Doesn't matter to me. I don't play politics at all. And I don't vote because my associate vote or my friends vote. That's not me. I'm a self-individual voter. When y'all see me sit here and close my eyes or look up, I'm getting information from someone else to make a decision. But I've seen some things around this council that I haven't seen in almost 20 years, 16, 17 years when I've been here. Politics, elections doesn't mean nothing to me. As I stated before, these seats that we are sitting here don't belong to us personally. It's the people's seats in the community. They vote you in and they vote you out because that's their choice. And we got to remember that. But I'm seeing something different here, Mr. Mayor. I'm seeing something different here that I do not care for. And I just don't like to be a party to things like that. I really don't. We got to be very serious-minded when we're sitting at these desks in here. Even with the Sumar Street, we're talking about over and over and over again, over and over again. We're going back to option 1, option 2. Option 1 was voted down by council, period. The only person to bring it back is someone on the prevailing side. That's not happening. We are trying to give West Ashley something that we are starting, and so they can see that we are doing something sitting here, not being idle. And that's why at that meeting, that 3-hour meeting that we did, to let them see that, hey, something is being done, that we're not sitting on the community development, there's nothing happening. And we came right back and did the same thing that Councilman Pale said, that if we go to community development, it's going to die. And that's what it died. Why? Because of right here, the people sitting here that's on that committee. And that's kind of, well, I don't want to say that out of it, but it's really getting next to me. I'm a serious-minded person. And I keep telling you all, I'm out in this community around here till 1 o'clock in the morning. None of you all are here in your community 1 and 1:30 in the morning. I'm out there. And that's why I'm known all over the city of Charleston, West Ashley, Johns Island. Those areas I know in the back of my hand. So I don't play the games. The games, I put that aside. I ain't got time to play games. Time is short than we all think. So we got to be serious-minded in doing things. So that's why when the council voted 8-5 to send it to the Community Development Committee to give staff some direction. That doesn't say that something else might come up that they can go and do some other information on the project and look at it again and even add things to it as they go along. But I was trying to look to save the city of Charleston money, but the developer that we had, because we got to pay them. We have to pay them anyway. Because that time frame that we were supposed to do it is already up. So this is what I'm saying. So I'm looking at saving our taxpayers' money that we're gonna have to pay out anyway. But I don't know what everybody else is looking at. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Councilmember Parker?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm going to ask this question again, but I'll start with it. Why do we still have the contract with Landmark at this point? Like you said, option one failed. Why are we at the standstill? Like we're stuck in the mud here. Option one failed. Why are we still in the contract? I hate to bring this up, but I mean, wasting taxpayer money. I've been here 2 years. I've seen a lot of waste happen. I've seen a lot of dollars go out the door, a lot of waste. So to say that these dollars are wasted, well, okay, maybe the plan wasn't right to begin with. Either way, this plan was done, the money's spent, it's time to pay the bill. I believe y'all as a city council spent close to $500,000 removing a statue. So let's talk about wasting money. We can sit here all night and debate wasting money. So this is the motion, option one failed, Mr. Mayor. Why are we still in contract? Why are we still under contract with Landmark? And what's holding us up from stopping? If legal can speak to that, I know they already have. We've been here. We've already been here a few times, gentlemen. I'm desperately confused why we're still here.
Technically, per the wording of the contract, it's terminated upon payment. So we haven't paid them yet. So as soon as we write the check and hand it to them, that's when the contract is deemed terminated.
So what is stopping us from paying?
So the way I understand it, the developer would like to continue to partner with us with whatever eventual option were selected and approved. So I think he's hopeful to be included. The motion that passed council a month or so ago did not include any direction to include Landmark in going forward. So the motion of a month ago or so was to create a new option, number 4. And we're not, I don't think Councilmember Saccharin is saying that we shouldn't do that. He's just saying in addition to creating option 4, that we also engage the public again, engage the community again. So I think it's just a matter of whether council would prefer that we continue to partner with Landmark in the pursuit of creating option 4 or not. Is that simply put?
Gentlemen, do you mind follow up?
Councilmember Parker?
Again, just
Yeah.
what's stopping us from paying, writing the check tomorrow, today? Do we need a vote? What's holding it up?
Councilmember Shade, you want to respond to that?
I hope I can answer your question, but Madam Clerk, I hate to ask you to repeat the motion, but so we're all clear. As I understand the motion, would you just repeat it one more time so we're all here a little bit slower? That's what the motion was.
And this was the motion that was made at community development that did not pass.
Right.
The motion was to pay Landmark what they are currently owed, ask them to participate in option 4. And if they do not want to participate, to put the item out for RFP.
So to answer your question, Councilmember Park, is this. This council, and I voted for option 1, failed. Option 2, failed. Option 3, failed.
No,
So,
sir, it didn't fail.
All those options,
It was
well, maybe not 3, but option 1 and 2 failed. Okay,
I think it was just option 1 that we took.
I think
2 and 3
we
were deferred.
we did bring it up, but anyhow, we can go back and review the minutes. So I proposed that we've been calling it option 4. It's really not option 4. It's really what is recommended in Plan West Ashland. that plan that's in there, it's a blueprint for what to do with Sumar Street. That passed 8-5. That's what the council had approved. Landmark is interested in pursuing that and following through on developing that option, or that, plan West Ashley. If we allow them to engage in that process, most likely than not, the money that we owe them by our contract can be rolled into our discussions with them on how they want to develop it. So the motion, that's why I asked for it to be repeated twice, is to either pay them, as you are asking very simply and very eloquently, or engage them. And that motion failed. Now, I don't understand why that motion failed. Unfortunately, I was in trial. I couldn't be here. I'm not a member of the committee, but I certainly would have voiced my support of that motion that I'm allowed to do as a member of the council. And then just remind everybody that we have been discussing Sumar Street since 2016. We engaged in this process called Plan West Ashley, which was a public engagement. And the planning department has told me repeatedly from different folks, it was the most involved citizen participation that they had experienced in their professional lives. It was my first experience in having something of any magnitude in doing that. Plan West Ashley was presented to this council and it passed unanimously. There's a recommendation right out of the book. Same thing that Councilmember Shealy talked about with this property on Buter Street. Same thing we did on Citadel Mall. And for some reason, it seems like we're talking about some abstract, crazy idea that it does not involve citizen participation. We engaged at citizen participation on what to do with Sumar Street. We got people's input on all that, and it varied. And guess what? It failed as council. So we're going to go back to 90 more days of what? To do what? What are we going to do 90 more days in doing? Coming back and your constituents say, oh, I like option one. Okay, good. Guess what? It failed. It died. It's dead. What keeps on amazing me about the opposition to what's in Plan West Ashley, it just astounds me beyond any comparison I've experienced, because I'm feeling the frustration of Councilmember Mitchell over here, is that this plan that's taken out of the book that we unanimously approved provides for the opportunity not only to build this civic center with this green space, but as in private developers tackle Ashley Landing, we have the opportunity to add these things on the retail and the commercial things that you talk about, Councilmember Sackler. We can't get there until we start and pass that motion that was brought before the Community Development Committee. If we move forward with that motion, we can start the process of developing Sumar Street. That process with Sumar Street can't expand. There's no limitation on it right now. And for the life of me, I don't understand why that's so hard for people in this body to understand and to comprehend. The problem with the option one and option two was the placement of the underground garage and the cost of doing that. And we've got to figure that out. We can partner with the folks who own Ashley Landing as they are going through their process of developing it. This is a start. It's not the end. But the vote against what happened at the Community Development Center sent a very clear message to West Ashley. We don't give a damn. You know, when we voted that down, we told them we're not moving forward. That's a clear message that we sent to West Ashley. But we're not moving forward. We're back at a stalemate. That's the problem with where we're headed with this thing. And I don't understand it. I really don't understand it. So your point is that pay them, cut them loose, and just let Sumar Street sit idle for another 5, 10, 15, 20 years. That's what we're looking at, quite frankly, honestly. The will of council has been expressed very loudly, it's been expressed very clearly. I don't necessarily agree with that we voted down option one, but we have an alternative. It's right there in front of us. Let's do it. It's like eating an elephant, one bite at a time. And we can do this. And we can tell the people in West Ashley where we're going. Let me just add one little footnote. I attended the awards banquet, Councilman Mashuli and I did Saturday morning for the firefighters. It was a very lovely event. The mayor came a little bit late, he came at the tail end of it. Wonderful event. Firefighters were recognized for their heroism, for their service to the community. That event was held at North Charleston Coliseum. You know why? There was no room at the end. You know what I mean by that? They couldn't afford any venue in the city of Charleston. And I called Chief Curry and raised hell and go, what are you doing having an award ceremony in North Charleston for the city fire department? So just think about this for 1 second, folks. We built this civic center. We got a room for the end for the firefighters. Now that may sound a little simplistic to you, but in all honesty, the purpose of this civic center is to provide our citizens, our firefighters, our police officers, a place to meet and celebrate, a place for us to have an alternative place to meet, for Piccolo Spoleto and other events to take place in that area. And by our vote, what happened last Thursday is denying this process of going forward. That's all I'm asking for. Just allow the process to go forward. Allow us to get our foot in the door to start this thing and get going, or got Landmark loose, and then we'll be stalemated for another, God knows how many years.
Thank you. Councilmember Waring.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The council member was right. The vote was 8-5. Mr. Ward stood over there with Landmark, and he told us at that same microphone that he'd do anything to help the community. Those gentlemen have been more than fair with this city. I think that motion, I had to leave the community development meeting to go to a Gilliard board meeting. The motion was, as I understand it, Madam Clerk, was to pay Landmark. I think they've done the work. We've been debating the work, but they've done the work, and offer them the opportunity to continue to move along and build a civic building in the park. As Councilman Shade said, it's part of Plan West Ashley. We paid, and I know it was before some on council were here, but we paid a little bit north of $500,000 for Plan West Ashley. And two very large items right now, we just throwing the plan aside. There's some really good stuff in that plan. Councilman Shealy just pointed one out on Verdier Drive, and certainly Sumar Street has already been exhibited. I think we should pay that. They have been nothing but gentlemanly to us, came with ideas for us to debate to the point to where it almost looked like WWE in here. But at the end of the day, the vote was 8-5 to move forward, full circle back with Plan West Ashley. I think we pay them. The motion failed in committee, but there's nothing wrong with us voting on that motion tonight. If it fails, it fails. If it does, at the very least, Landmark deserved the opportunity to be paid. And Mr. Ward said anything that they can do to help the community, they're willing to do. I would hope they would stay on and continue to plan this process and build a civic center and the green space and tie it in with Faison if that's so desires of Faison. But to say that it ends, and all due respect, council member, it really was a wonderful planning process. and thousands of people turned out with Plan One. So I'm not saying you not respecting that, but the community's been heard. It's time for us to do our job. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So eventually, I know we're gonna have more discussion, but I would put that motion on the floor that we pay them and ask them to stay on and plan what council voted on 8 to 5, which was the Civic Center and green space. Thank you.
Councilmember Sacman.
And this is my second go around. I don't know if anyone else wants to have a first go around. Councilman Seekings, you look so frustrated. Go ahead.
That would be a
Go-
very
go-
good word.
Go ahead.
Frustrated.
Councilmember Seekings.
Well, I'm going to save my comments till we have do we have a motion on the floor?
I think we have a motion on the floor.
I made them.
So. I
It
guess-
sounds like it's basically to restate the motion that was made at committee.
If you don't mind, read it again, Madam Clerk.
So just so I'm clear, so it's to pay Landmark and give them the option, give them the opportunity to work on option 4.
Councilmember Seekings.
My recollection, and I'll certainly be corrected if the minutes do not reflect what I'm about to say, is, but when we voted 8 to 5, what we voted to do was send it back to our planning department to look at not just Sumar Street, but that entire corridor, including but not limited to the North Bridge. It was a much more expansive motion than send it back to them, call up Landmark and let's rethink Sumar Street. It was far more expansive.
You're right.
That's what we voted on, and that's what is the law of the land today.
And if I may interject on that point, we discussed at the committee meeting the other day that the planning department has included in its budget for next year, a planning effort we're calling Rethink Sam Ritt, that would in effect take that second piece that you've just mentioned.
Okay, well, again, it's kind of fractured. I think the key word is rethink. As y'all know, I've sat here since day one of the Sumar Street, what I'm going to term, and you don't have to adopt this because I know you all don't agree with me, the Sumar Street debacle, and it has. And here's why. We've been sitting around talking about this for 8 years. 8, pretty close. I mean, we started talking about it in 2015, in 2016, 17, 18, 19, 20. 21, 22, 23, 8 years, maybe a little longer. And I don't like to use the word I, but there are some of us who on this council who have been very consistent in our views about what we should and shouldn't be doing. What do as a city council? We make people safe, police and fire, pick up your garbage. They're out there today, by the way. I mean, early and often, I mean, it's great. And we do zoning, a lot of it. We look forward, we vision what our city will and should look like through zoning. We're not developers. And my God, if we have ever proven that, Sumar Street, I'll take that, Councilmember Appel, to closing argument every time. We have proven in 8 years, we're not developers and shouldn't be in the development business. I voted against buying the Sumar Street property, not because I didn't think we should do some things over there and stop the gas station, which clearly everybody didn't want, but every time something comes along that a committee looks at and says, we don't like it, are we just going to go buy the property out from underneath the property owner? That's just not a long-term sustainable method of running and planning a city. We own that property, much to the lament of some of us. We own the zoning. We have a large say in what happens on the public side with the TIF, with public infrastructure. If we're going to go back and rethink this, one of the things we absolutely should rethink is let's take that property on, let's zone it up properly, and let's put it back in the private sector. That doesn't mean we're out of the game. We can still partner as we go forward. Puts it back on the tax scrolls. We can vision it out. We can then take what the mayor's just described. If we vote on a budget that includes expanding the look over into the North Bridge and all that, which is probably a really good idea. And let's get out of the development business. We've spent so much time. I mean, enormous amounts of each one of our time, our staff's time, our citizens' time over 8 years. And where are we tonight? We don't even know. I mean, it's really hard to tell, really hard to tell. We've asked staff to do something. They're not clear on that. We had a committee that couldn't even agree on that. So look, I don't know what's going to come out of tonight, but I don't think we should do anything rash and just quick throw something on the table and vote again. Let's be thoughtful about it. My position is always going to be, we need to put this back in the hands of the private sector with a thoughtful process in mind, knowing that we own that zoning, we own the property. While we do, let's put it in a place to succeed. Right now, it's at best, well, it's not succeeding. And so, again, I don't really know where we're going tonight, but I will tell you, my view of the world, just mine, is that we need to put this property in place where it will be successful in the private sector, because we as a city are not developers. We're not.
Could I ask the councilman a question, Mr. Mayor?
Sure.
Councilman Warren, yeah, sure.
Basically, everything you said, I can agree with the exception of the city does need a public space West Ashley. We don't have a public space West Ashley. Under your scenario, how would that occur?
So, okay, I mean, I agree that, let me take that back. Public space is a really good thing, and you should be able to get to public space from your community. Right now, if you live in West Ashley, you can't get to City Hall but for one way, right? You can't walk here, you can't ride your bike here, all those things. As we think about that corridor and we think about public space and we think about zoning this up and we think about putting out there and selling it, we can do all those things and we can have public space built out there if we zone it up right and negotiate a contract with the private sector. I mean, and there's nothing wrong with us selling out a $3 million piece of property, putting it on the tax rolls, having some public space. And if we have to actually be a tenant rather than a landowner, that's way better for everybody, including our coffers, because we'll be collecting tax dollars over the course of time. It'd be a heck of a lot cheaper than us developing with our money a massive project out there, which is, again, not part of our charter. It's not what we do. So it doesn't mean it's out of the question. It just is us being the lead as development on it. I don't believe is the right way to go.
When you need a space for a long period of time, you own it. That's why we did the Gill Yard. We used to lease all over town. We now took those rents and we now own the Gill Yard and our offices are over at the Gill Yard. So we just want to do the same thing. We need a public space for people to use West End.
I get it. And again, we should think about that. I don't think that Sumar Street presents the ideal opportunity for that. And it would be crazy expensive. It's barely functional in its current configuration. I mean, one of the things we talk about all the time with Sumar Street and one of its challenges is accessibility. We're going to build public space that's in a space that's kind of inaccessible. I mean, I think that's something to think about too. All of those things, something to think about. Anyway, y'all, my position is pretty clear on this one. I am all in favor of something that really looks great in West Ashley on Sumar Street and lots of other places too, and having some public space. But we have not done a good job in 8 years of figuring this one out. And unlikely we're going to do it anytime in the near future.
Councilmember Appel and then Greg.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And Mike, I appreciate you making those comments, because what I think it does is it destroys this fallacy that there's some sort of overwhelming support on council for a civic space and a park at the suicide merge. Okay, that's not what the motion 8-5 was. The motion that was passed 8-5 was not to go pick up Plan West Ashley and run with it in terms of what's designated on that site. And Mike just said that. It's not, I don't think there's overwhelming support from maybe our more conservative minded council members to spend tens of millions of dollars on a government building and a park at the suicide merge. Maybe I'm wrong about that. Maybe I'm misreading the room, but I don't think I am. So let's just sort of digest that a little bit. Option one was absolutely, but I mean, a civic space is going to cost money. It's going to cost substantial money. It's not going to be on the tax rolls.
Oh, all right, I'm gonna let one council member at a time.
So I think that this whole idea that there's some clear direction from council and you know, the CD committee is now blocking that clear vision, it's a fallacy. The motion that was made on council to send this to CD, the whole reason it had to even go to CD was because the motion at council was so confusing in terms of what it directed staff to do, that staff had no idea what they were directed to do. Okay, so Mike is 100% right. This has become a mess. It has become clear as mud. The reason I'm on the CD committee, the reason I voted against Councilman Gregory's motion is because I don't want to write a check to Landmark, by the way, for money they have not asked for. Okay, number one, and terminating the contract has legal implications. What are the legal implications? Once that contract is terminated, we can't just go talk to Landmark in some vague manner about pursuing some other option. No, we've got to go back out for RFP once that contract is terminated. Once the contract is terminated, the legal relationship with Landmark is sayonara. So that means we got to go back out to an RFP, engage staff time, resources. And what's the RFP going to even say? We've already talked about how the vision from council has been opaque, to say the least. What maybe would have carried more favor at CD is if we would have gotten into maybe a more nuanced negotiation with Landmark about how we could maybe roll some of the costs that have been expended so far into another concept. That would avoid the legal result of having to go back out to RFP, but that's not the motion that was made. Okay, so here's what I'll say. There's a
Point
million.
of order, point on, Mr. Mayor. Let me do this. Let me withdraw that motion. Okay, let me withdraw that motion. Actually, the point you made, I think, is very good. Maybe we do sit back and say that again. Negotiate a nuance or whatever you said.
So you forgot the part.
Pretty good.
So no. So where I was
Let me
actually
sit down with these guys. Listen, they've been really gentlemen. I withdraw the motion.
where I was.
Motion has been withdrawn.
Okay, I've been told to sometimes stop when I've succeeded, so I'm gonna maybe just gently float back into the bushes here. Yeah, of course. I didn't make a motion.
No, he didn't make a motion. I withdrew my motion.
If I interject, the comment that you made, if I may be recognized, Mr.
I'm
Mayor.
sorry, Councilmember Shade.
Thank
Councilmember Appel still has the
He-
floor.
he
Then I was
does.
going to call on Councilmember Greg next, who has not been heard yet. Councilmember Appel, do you
so-
want to finish up?
Yeah, I think where I was going with this is there has not been clear direction from council with respect to what the future of Sumar Street is. This idea that there was an 8-5 vote to proceed with a civic center and a park at the suicide merge is a fallacy. It's an absolute fallacy. And Mike is, Councilman Seekings, I appreciate him mentioning that. What I would close with is we've got a election in November. It's less than a month and a half away. Let's hit pause. Let's stop talking about Sumar Street until the election. The worst thing we could do is set about a series of directives, expensive moves, directing staff to do this, cutting checks for Landmark to do that, all for there to be a new political reality in a month and a half. What is it, less than 50 days? Okay, let's take a break. Let's take a breath on this. We have been at this a long time. Mike is 100% right. It long predates, my time on council. The last thing Sumar Street needs is more starts and stops. I think this will be much more clear in terms of the direction we're going to be heading in very short amount of time. And at that point, we can coalesce around a vision and move forward. But one thing, and I'll close with saying this, I am never voting for a government building and a park at the suicide merge. That to me is just, it's hard for me to think of a worse idea than that. And I'm inclined to agree with Mike. I mean, I'd rather put it on the private, put it out for the private market in some sort of partnership of some kind rather than doing that. That's the last thing we need to be doing. And there's sort of this sense that a government building and a park is sort of some no cost proposition or it's going to be tens of millions of dollars. That's what things cost these days, especially when they're starting from scratch and especially when they're having to be completely re-entitled. It might not be as expensive as underground parking garage. I get that, but it may not ultimately be much more different than option two would have been had we actually taken that vote up and done that. So anyways, I'd say we just press pause for the next, month and a half or so. Let's see how the election turns out and pick it up and go from there.
Councilmember Gregg.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So I've been looking through my Sumar Street files as we've all been talking. What strikes me about all of the different options is the square footage of civic space. It varies across the board. It goes from what's the number here that Mr. Pullman gave us? We go from close to 20,000 square feet down to 7,000 square feet. I think if we were to make a motion, my suggestion would be, let's study what the city actually needs as far as civic space in West Ashley. I don't think we've done that study yet. That study should not include public engagement. We don't, when we're looking at the public works facility off of Romney Street, we didn't ask the public how much square footage we needed to park fire trucks and train firemen and park police cars. We did that internally. We hired an architect and figured out what the need was. So my suggestion would be, let's go figure out what the need is for the civic space at Sumar Street, and let's base our design and our development moving forward on that. One other point, the $683,000 that we're gonna pay Landmark that no matter what, even if they are the developer of choice when we move forward with this facility, they're gonna roll that in. They're not working for free. Ross, you know this because you work with developers all the time. They're gonna roll that into the cost of whatever they build and they'll get paid. I hate to say this, but nobody's doing this out of the goodness of their hearts. They're doing it to make a profit. And that's what option one, option two, and option three were gonna be. So if there, my motion would be, could we put, I'm gonna make a motion. I think this is my first motion I've made in council in 2 years.
Hey, come on.
My motion would be, let's send this to staff and do a study to determine how much square footage the city needs for civic space at this particular site. When that comes back, then perhaps we could take that up. That would likely be after the election, and we figure out what to do with it after that. And that would be the direction we give to Landmark. Thank you.
I have a motion.
Well, I'm assuming we'll get some study back from staff that tells us how much civic space we need on that site. We take that number, and that would be a combination of city conference and office, civic assembly, civic support, and civic lawn. We would take that number and give it to Landmark, and that's what they could base their development on. We don't terminate the contract with them because, as Ross said, then we'd have to go back out on the street to go through another RFP process. Thank you.
Did we get a second? We got a second. Councilmember Brady.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. And I just want to commend Councilmember Gregg on his motion. I think that's a good middle path forward. It provides the direction that we've been talking about that they're looking for, as well as addressing the city's actual needs, rather than us just being kind of esoteric and debating back and forth amongst ourselves. So I just wanted to thank you for putting that out there, and I'd be in support.
And would you repeat again, Councilmember Gregg, the combination of uses that you included for civic?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, thank you. So we have a combination of city conference and office, civic assembly, civic support, and civic lawn. Those are the four real civic space. Oh, and I think civic lawn includes the fountain, if I'm not mistaken. So it would be a combination of those four uses.
But it would include potential office space if the city needed some.
Correct. Yeah, I think
Right.
that would be civic. Yeah, that's in the first one, city conference and office space.
I know we had a discussion about whether there was a need for future office space. And frankly, as a number of other discussions have happened over the last few months amongst city staff, I believe you'd find that the city staff would recommend that we will need additional office space. And so as long as that's included, I'd be supportive of the motion as well.
Mr. Mayor, just to confirm for the record, Councilmember Gregg's motion, this is to send option 4 to staff, or just send to staff to determine how much square footage is needed for a civic space to include city conference and office space, city assembly and civic lawn, which includes a fountain
In civic support space. I
and
think.
civic support space.
Yep.
All right. Any,
Point of clarification, Mr. Mayor,
yes, sir, Councilmember Shade.
because your voice trailed off a little bit at the end of that. But I think you also mentioned something about landmark. Did you not?
Well, I
To
mean,
include- to include-
currently, we have a contract with the landmark, so I think the hope would be that we get this report back or this study back. And then that would provide us further direction for landmark in the future, but at a date to be determined, that would give us some direction for landmark.
Councilmember Sacre.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm just trying to understand, Council. I'm going to support the motion, but how do we fill in the rest of the conceptual idea of Sumar? When does that happen? So I just want to preface, my point tonight was trying to, dare I say, get some clarity on a path moving forward. Maybe public engagement wasn't the best way, but I guess my question is, so we go to the city does an assessment on civic needs space for staff. What about the remainder of the conceptual idea for Sumar Street? How do we gather that?
I think what Councilmember Gregg is proposing is that we look at our own needs first in a way. And we might come back with a recommendation. We need the whole site for all of that you just mentioned. I don't know. But do an honest assessment, looking forward as to what the city needs would be first. And then I guess we'd fall back if we had real estate left over after that.
And then just my last part of that is that I'm glad that staff are going to have some directive. I think that's
Yeah.
part of tonight's discussion. And I just want to before we go on to the next item or next speaker, wanted to just share that my intent was to try to get clarity. I still think, and I'm not going to relitigate this, but there are some things I just need to respond to. If Plan West Ashley, Councilman Shade, and anyone else was very clear about what Sumar Street should look like, I think that's debatable. I think some council members read the Plan West Ashley and extrapolate X, Y, and Z. And then there's others that extrapolate X, Y, and Z from a different perspective. So if we agree that reading Plan West Ashley is not clear what should be at Sumar Street, can we agree to that proposition that it's unclear? Because that's when I read Plan West Ashley, it's very clear that it's mixed use. There's all sorts of things. And I do want to say to Councilman Seeking's point, I don't care who builds this. My point tonight was from a conceptual standpoint, to Councilman Appel's point, I couldn't live with myself being on council to approve a green space, some sort of civic space that we didn't do any study on in a suicide barge. To me, that's nuts. So I was trying to get us to a place where we were focusing on something for the staff and something that was a little bit more robust. Whether it's a private developer or the city, that wasn't my concern. The last piece of this is to your comments, Councilman Shade. If Plan West Ashley and that whole engagement process was fruitful and authentic and real, then option 1, 2, or 3 was the product of that engagement. We decided not to go with that. So you can't have your cake and eat it too. You can't say that we engaged the public and the product from the plan was option 1, 2, and 3. We didn't like what came out of it. Clearly, we voted against 1 and we tabled 2 and 3. So all my point was, if the engagement process did not work as we thought it would, let's go back to the drawing board. But I think it's disingenuous to say that the engagement process lasted 5 years. And the point of the engagement process was the product was, here are the options, and we voted against them. To me, that's a disconnect. So it seems to me we weren't taking the pulse of our folks in West Ashley, or we just decided that we didn't like the options as a council. So.
Understood. Councilmember Shade has to be recognized. And then if you don't mind, I want to ask staff one question. Councilmember Shade.
There's a lot of things said here tonight that to me is somewhat disturbing. But I appreciate your motion. I will support your motion because at least it gives us a path forward. And I think we're talking around ourselves and not listening. We do not have a civic space in West Ashley. we do not have a Gilliard Convention Center in West Ashland. We do not have a place for this assembly to meet from time to time when we have large gatherings, and we've seen that on numerous occasions. The first experience was, we're talking about the West Ashley bike lane. Went to the Gilliard, 500 people. It's not a fallacy, Councilmember Appel, as to what the clarity was on this site. And you keep on knocking this comment that I'm opposed to a civic center in a park at the suicide merge. But that's insulting to people of West Ashland. And quite frankly, it's insulting to me personally. When you make those comments, that's insulting to me, because what you're not paying attention to is that the point that I keep on trying to emphasize is that we're not stopping the other elements of being built on that site. We're not precluding that. You supported a plan that was gonna be $45 million of city money that included a civic center. You supported that with green space at the suicide merge. Now, it also had other aspects to it, which was commercial and included a garage. It died because, I think, mainly of the overall expense, which included the garage. We're trying to shoehorn too much in there. Now, if we move forward with your proposal, Councilmember Floyd, Greg, we then have a path forward to include these things that we know we desperately need in West Ashland. And once you start that process, then you have the options to expand to include maybe these commercial spaces that you approved and wanted to have at the very beginning. But now we've got probably, hopefully, a partner that we can further discuss addressing the main problem with this project, which is parking, if you want to add these other components to it. So you can't talk out of both sides of your mouth and say, I'm for a civic center with green space, and then insult the people of West Ashland and saying it's a fallacy about putting a green space and a civic center on suicide merge, when you're cutting off the other options that you can add in there later with a commercial component to it. I think that we have this mentality here of all or nothing. I'm trying to get us off that all or nothing mentality. We have gone through this, and staff knows the numbers. We've already crunched the numbers on what we need out there. We've configured these numbers back and forth over the course of this. So, Councilmember, proposals should be very simple and very, how about with a quick response to us of what we need. So we look at what we need for the Civic Center, and we come back and report back to the council. We're not going to be the developers on that. We're going to have someone to develop it for us, and we build it. Hopefully, we build it, and it gets constructed. And as that process is going forward, hopefully we're engaged in conversations with the folks at Ashley Landing as they're doing their $150 million project. And then maybe we can talk to them about parking to then add the other commercial components to that. And you start this process of revitalizing West Ashley when you do that. That's what we're trying to accomplish. That's pretty, for me, that's pretty simple and it's pretty clear. I mean, I can see the vision with all of that. So let's vote on this proposed motion. Let's get that started. Let staff come back with some numbers for us that includes these 4 components that have been brought before us. Let's see how that ends up.
All right. So could I just put Robert Summerfield on the spot and ask, based upon the motion to do an assessment for our civic needs over there, do you have enough clarity to proceed and get that done?
Yes.
Thank you. All right. I'd like to call the question. All in favor of Councilmember Gregg's motion, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? 1 nay. The ayes have it.
And just,
May I explain my vote? I mean,
Sure,
this is,
of course. Councilmember Parker.
this is absurd. I just hope we are spinning around and around in this. I've sat on community development. We told staff, we gave staff direction. Now, whether the mayor's office or staff decided not to bring that information back to community development, that's the part I'm trying to figure out. So it was clear what we were trying to get, and we've received none of that.
Mr. Mayor, just for the record, so Councilmember Waring was not present for the vote, and Councilmember Bowden, I know you're on virtually. How did you vote?
You still there?
Aye.
And
Aye.
Councilmember Bowden voted in favor of the motion.
I vote,
I'm sorry, Councilmember Mitchell.
I'm voting nay, not because the motion, and I'm gonna explain why, not the motion. That I don't agree with the motion, what he's saying, but everything that's was said that my colleague said is what I was trying to do in the beginning. Give the staff that direction and come back. That's what it is. That's the direction that we were supposed to do at community development, give the staff direction. The same thing we were doing now, giving the staff direction to see what the square foot is. That's the same motion that was supposed to be made on community development. So that's what I'm saying. I must be coming from the other space somewhere to see these things going. It's the same motion. That's what we said at community development, to give the staff direction. So if the staff, we told them that the community center or the civic center, and that didn't stop it. That was just only a start. But even doing that, they still could look and see how they can do with other amenities like shops and whatever the case may be, but getting a start. That's what it was all about, just getting something started in West Ashley.
Thank
Been
you,
here too long.
Councilmember.
That's what happened.
Councilmember Waring, we call the question on the motion that passed, but if you'd like to register your vote, that would be great. All right. Okay. And I would like, just for the record, Councilmember Parker, to say that this whole matter came back to council at our last meeting and then got sent to community development, really on the request of Councilmember Gregory, who's not here tonight, because he felt that more clarity was needed to instruct staff. So that's where this came from. All right. So next committee report is our Committee on Public Works and Utilities. Councilmember Waring, but
I'll give the
Councilmember
report of the-
Shade was acting chairman of the committee yesterday.
I should get a pay raise. I had to act for two chairmen yesterday for real estate and just reiterate my public service announcement. Please, if you can't make the meeting, tell Jennifer well in advance. You would greatly appreciate that. Since we were short-handed yesterday, the items we took up besides approval of minutes and receiving the report from acceptance of right-of-ways and encroachments, we voted on two items. One was the Barbary Woods, which I think was part of the discussion we had at Ways and Means, and the resolution to adopt the 2023 Charleston Regional Hazard Mitigation Plan. Those both passed unanimously, and I recommend that. And just also for clarification, the other updates that we had talked about were deferred until next meeting.
Right. Any questions or discussion?
I just
All-
want to thank Councilman for stepping in at the last minute to run that meeting. Thank you so much.
Yes, sir. Councilmember Parker.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Fountain, sorry to bring you up, but I do have a question on the Charleston Regional Hazard Mitigation Plan. Can you just remind me? All right, this is, so some of the items, just page 220, formally adopted legislatively binding. So we are obviously, we're committing to this because we need it to receive, obviously there are a lot of things in there regarding climate change and disparities and things like this. So I'm just curious, what does that bind us to
So the
with this
plan,
understanding?
the plan is similar to like a comprehensive plan would be from a zoning perspective, that it's a layout of information associated with different hazards, everything from fire to flooding to earthquake. In the Charleston region, that's why it's generally managed kind of at the county level, and then the city participates in that task force and stakeholder group. They lay out sort of facts, information gathering, potential mitigation strategies. And then that document basically makes the city eligible for a number of different grant programs. there's some impact to some of our flood insurance options. But basically, it's like a strategic document that says these are the kind of the visions of the region and the city. It's not a binding document in the sense that here is an action plan we must fund and promulgate, but it is intended to be a similar to a comprehensive plan, a guiding document where you're supposed to take actions within those grants, within those activities that tie back into the plan.
Okay, thank you.
Absolutely.
All right. Any other questions or comments? All in favor, please say aye. Any opposed? The ayes have it. Next is our Committee on Ways and Means as amended. Yeah. Okay. Any discussion on any of these items or questions? All in favor, please say aye. Any opposed? The ayes have it. I would like to note to council, of course, that amended item was to give approval subject to final authorization by the South Carolina Department of Transportation and the Federal Highway Administration to proceed with the construction of the bike pedestrian bridge over the Ashley River. And since we have now approved it, I did for the record want to thank all the staff that's been working on this diligently for a few years. Jason Kronsberg sitting back over there. Edmund Most is not here, but the two of them, along with our finance, Amy Wharton and finance folks have really worked diligently to make this happen. I wanted to shout out to Councilmember Seekings because I think he was carrying the ball on this early on and a long time ago, and Councilmember Appel for your advocacy over the last couple of years. But mostly I want to thank Secretary of Transportation Christy Hall and Secretary of Transportation on federal level Pete Buttigieg, because frankly, folks, they've funded this project more than anyone else. And I know some folks have questioned why we would spend a great sum of money to accomplish this. It's truly a transformational piece of infrastructure, I think, for our city long term. And some years from now, we'll look back and everybody's just going to be glad we have it. Kind of like the bike ped facility that goes over the harbor as part of the Ravenel Bridge. And not that you would unnecessarily spend money, but Secretary Hall did express to me that a good part of the late funding, the last funding that she was able to bring to the table was federal funding that was designated for bike ped facilities. So it was federal money that needed to be spent for this purpose. And South Carolina apparently had a time limit upon which to spend the money. And frankly, if we had not approved this this evening, that money might be going back to Washington and then spent on some bike ped bridge somewhere else in the country, which I'd just assume have it invested here and provide this, as I mentioned, transformational piece of infrastructure. So I want to thank everybody, but particularly Secretary Hall and Secretary Buttigieg for their support on this matter. And I appreciate council's support on it as well. Thank you. Councilmember Seekings.
Just very briefly, Mr. Mayor, and I agree with your observations and your comments, and thank you for those. I do think it's important to note, as we recognize Secretary Hall, she put her money where her mouth was, literally. You and I were in a meeting with her where she shared her thoughts about this project, how important it was. And we were looking at ways, at that point, we were coming up a little bit short on the dollars. We were looking at ways to maybe cut back, make it a little smaller and all that. And she said, I will support this project. I will find you the money. I have one stipulation, that it be the best project it can be. It be full scale. You do not scale it back. You do not do anything other than make it the best thing it can be. And this project is going to be transformational. So it's been a long way. It's been a long journey and we're almost there. So, but I think it's important to know that we got support at the state level for the best project we can build here in Charleston.
That's absolutely correct. Councilmember Shade.
Mayor, I think you've hit a lot of the notes on this, but I think you may have missed the Medical University of South Carolina. They have been extremely supportive and a strong advocacy for this bridge for a lot of different reasons. One is a health issue that they've been very supportive of, but also, and I think that I've tried to explain this to folks, that this bridge is not a recreational bridge. It will provide recreational component to it, but it's an alternate means of transportation getting from West Ashley into downtown. And they, particularly the Medical University, saw that with their employees, the number of employees that are, and staff members that come across from West Ashley, from the various areas, they will be using this bridge. And so the untold number, and you heard from Councilmember Shealy about traffic counts and things of that nature. Just think for a second, and I know we've all been very supportive of this. Think for a second, the number of less cars going over Ashley River Bridge when this is finally done. The Medical University bought into providing an ambulatory surgery center at Citadel Mall. And I think the estimate was 6,000 less cars coming into downtown Charleston just by the employment of that surgery center. So these alternate means of transportation, and the American University was just a really strong partner with us in doing that. And I just wanted to point that back out.
Yes, sir. Thank you very much. All right, next up is bill for second reading.
Move to take 1 through 14 together.
Could I ask y'all to accept number 9? We have a request to withdraw number 9. So be 1 through
Second.
8 and 10 through 14.
Second.
We have a second. Any discussion or questions on any of those? All in favor, please say aye. Any opposed now for third reading and ratification of 1 through 8, 10 through 14? Any questions? All in favor, please say aye. Any opposed? The ayes have it. Now we may entertain a motion to withdraw number 9 and 15. All right. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The ayes have it. Next up, we have 3 bills.
1
for-
to 3, first reading.
For first reading, and they're all related, so I'd suggest we take them
1
together.
to 3.
All right. All in favor of taking them together?
Aye.
Please say aye. Any
Aye.
opposed? Would y'all like to have any presentation? And I noticed
No.
that Brian Hellman is here. I think he's representing the owner of the property to answer any questions
No,
that we
sit
may
down.
have as well.
Well, I would
Councilmember
just suggest
Siddiqui.
this, Mr. Mayor, just very briefly, he's been
Don't
here for a long
briefly.
time, just to let people know what this is a precursor to. I think it's important that the universe out there knows what we're about to do.
That's right.
Briefly.
Mr. Hellman.
I will be very brief because I know there's been a lot that's been said tonight. Actually, tonight with me is Christina, who's president and CEO of Trident Health. And Christina can speak or I can speak. What I think most of you know what we're up to here, and this would be building a hospital on Johns Island, the sites that were annexed into the city, and very excited about it. I can say a lot more, but we can also save that for the public hearing, or we can talk about it one-on-one. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, sir. Any other comments or questions on items 1 through 3? Councilmember Brady, you still represent Johns Island?
Oh, I definitely am in favor of this. As Councilmember Mitchell and I were just saying, I mean, this is gonna be a game changer for Johns Island. It'll be a job center. So people commuting off island that are in the healthcare space will now have a new opportunity to work on the island. But also from a traffic perspective, a lot of folks are coming from Kiowa, Seabrook, and Wadmalaw and traveling through that corridor to go off the island. So this gives them a medical space, a hospital on the island that they can do. And I think also, since the city owns the track next to it, there's an opportunity to really make a nice connection between the hospital space and the Griffith track that we own as a passive park. And so I think there's a lot of synergy there, and I'm really looking forward to seeing this come to fruition.
Absolutely. Any other questions or comments?
And Mr. Mayor, who is the motion and the second on the floor? I know there was a vote to take them together, but is there a separate
A
motion
motion
to?
to approve
Some of
and
All right.
second. Okay, Councilmember Waring.
No, I was just saying, I want to follow up on Councilman Brady. This actually reminds me of when The novel idea of a hospital be placed West Ashley when St. Francis, I know you remember that, Mr. Mayor, was coming West Ashley. That's before the merger of Roper and St. Francis. Prior to that, everybody had to come to the Peninsula for healthcare services. When when St. Francis Hospital came off of Glenn McConnell, that was the only thing out there. The hospital. No Lowe's, no Home Depot, no nothing. And of course, Glenn McConnell obviously expanded to Beesbury Road. So one of the fastest growing areas in the city, actually the fastest growing area is Johns Island. And one of the ways you can look at that is water taps. More water meters are tapped monthly on Johns Island, new services than any other place in the city of Charleston. So the healthcare services are needed.
Councilmember Mitchell.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, this is going to be great for the people in Johns Island, Seabrook Island, Kiowa Island, Guatemala Island. Because I said, growing up in that area with my grandparents, didn't have anything. We had to drive all the way. During that time, it was Old Roper. You might not remember that part of it, but Old Roper was downtown. And then when they build the new Roper, everyone still had to leave there, the island, to go all the way there. And then they built Roper St. Francis, West Ashley, and had to leave Johns Island, Kiowa, and Seabrook Island, Guatemala. And by the time you get there, I had a cousin that died because the distance was so long. She was only but 7 years old. The distance was so long to leave Johns Island near Kiowa and Seabrook to get all the way to the hospital. So this is going to be great because they also have emergency room there that they can go to. And all it's going to be right there on the island that you wouldn't have to leave the island and travel so far. So this is going to be great. Thank you.
Any other comments or questions? All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? The ayes have it. Madam Clerk has a few announcements, and we do have an executive session to receive some legal advice.
So I just wanted to let council know about two events before we go into executive session coming up this week. And they're both on Friday. One is at 10 o'clock. It's over at the Gibbs. And this is the dedication of the Fred Wilson sculpture in front of the Gibbs. And then at 11:30, we're going to have the unveiling of Vanessa Turner Maybank's portrait here in the council chamber. So you can go over to the Gibbs at 10 and then come over here at 11:30 for that. That was it. Who's the motion in the second? Who is the motion in the second? Okay.
Christina, oh, very nice.
Councilmember Appel. Any signs? And we also need to note that, not all of the
Cheatham and Hughes versus something.
Second.
Yes, sir, Mr. Mayor, if I might make a motion, I would move that we here at City Council direct our city legal team and our council to continue moving forward with condemnation proceedings of 10 Concord Street for the public purpose of expanding waterfront park. That's my motion.
Second.
Aye.
Aye.
All right, there.